Welcome to Squatchin Holler.
In the mist where the trees lean low, Squatchin Holler's got a tale to show. Whispers creep like a creature's faint howl. Every shadow's got a secret to growl. Monsters rise where the stories are told. Squatchin Holler where the legends are born. Are they here? Are they gone? Who can say? In the holler, the truth just slips away. Huge footprints fade where the creek runs thin. A lantern sways, let the search begin. Rustling leaves, but there's no one near. Is it the wind or the beast you fear? Every echo's a question, every rustle's a clue. Squatchin Holler's got its eyes on you. Monsters rise where the stories are torn. Squatchin Holler where the legends are born. Are they here? Are they gone? Who can say?
And now, with your Squatchin Holler hosts, Roger Williams, Amanda Stowers, and Ashley Raines. Remember, this podcast can be downloaded everywhere great podcasts are found. And now the show.
This is Jeremiah Byron from Bigfoot Society, and you're listening to Squatchin Holler. So get ready, because it's a good time.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you, Jeremiah. That was
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you.
Uh-oh, Roger, you're silent.
Uh-oh.
We can't hear you.
Good catch, y'all.
There you go.
At least
Sorry.
it wasn't me this time.
So the guys we have coming on, they're friends with Naoma Finn, and we played hers last week. She did one.
Yeah.
It was
Okay,
great.
cool.
Yeah. Well, I may play that at the end so Ashley can see that. How y'all been?
Been
Good.
Been wide open. Oh my goodness, been wide open.
Yeah. Busy week.
So, Ashley, how's your show doing?
Not as well as I would like it to be, but you know what? All good things in time. And
That's
I
right.
just want to say thank you guys for your support. Next episode will premiere this coming Monday, the 13th, and it will feature Alan McKenna of Loch Ness exploration fame. We're going to talk Edinburgh ghost stories and kind of share a little bit of how we met, and of course, talk about all things Nessie on this particular episode. So I will say it's not alive just due to the scheduling conflicts, him being in Scotland. Obviously me in the States, so it will be pre-recorded, but hey, I welcome everybody to come check it out. Nonetheless, it should be a good time. Thank you for asking, Roger, by the way. It means a lot.
You're welcome. You know, we're proud of you.
Oh yes,
Um,
very, very. Your
so-
last episode with Strange Ology was very good. I really enjoyed the conversation. So
It was
shout
fun.
out to Ashley. I'll check out her show if you haven't watched it yet.
Monday nights. So this show tonight, I've wanted to get these guys on for a long time, but it's all in time, and I'm glad it's happening when it is, because we have expanded audience, and I have a little bit of background working at the sheriff's department a couple years. I wanted to be a detective, and I read as much as I could at the time, unofficial training, ride-alongs. And a lot of times, when I first started doing this, I was surprised that at a lot of the officers or former officers, investigators, people with expertise and training that are into this, and I know how they're made up. They're curious, and if they see something they don't understand, man, it just lights a fire. And
Mhm.
and also being a dispatcher and then knowing how much area the guys cover at night by themselves on the back roads in the hollers when nobody else is awake. I got to thinking, they're in the spots to see this stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And how many times have you heard watching other shows, other podcasts, other documentaries, how often it's stated, this is a law enforcement officer. This is
Mhm.
a professional in the community that not only has no reason to lie or deceive, they have everything to lose. That's their credibility.
Mhm.
Like it means something still, even after all this time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the good part about it is they know how to preserve evidence, document evidence, or if they don't know how to deal with a particular thing they got people they can call, so
Well, for me, it's also the descriptions. Like, just
mhm.
full disclosure, I'm not great with distances. Like 30 yards, I have to think about that. Like I have to I'm a landmark person. So it's like, okay, well, I was this many feet from this thing. Like I need help visualizing certain things. So when people like police officers, law enforcement, first responders, I trust very much when they say 30 yards or it was this tall or
Mhm.
they have the training too to recognize certain markers and be accurate with those.
Right. And also a lot of my friends that went on to be deputies and city officers and detectives and all, they go through stress training. They go through a lot of things. So when the what's hitting the fan, they're focused on what's at hand. So you might pick up a little more detail and with somebody that hasn't gone through that training, they may shut down and you don't get a good description. So let's bring the guys on. A lot of people in chat, y'all know DA and Robby, if you watch Woodwalkers and their shows and we'll run the tickers and all. Nightmare Hunters. Yep. Y'all have read their books probably. So here we go. Let's bring in DA and Robby. And for the people that don't know, can y'all tell a little bit about yourself, fellas?
Robby, go ahead. You go first.
Well, I'm Robby Raines. I'm DA's co-host or one of his co-hosts on the Nightmare Hunter podcast. Also, an aspiring author like my brother from another
You have
mother
5
over
books
here.
in print. You're not aspiring anymore. Stop saying aspiring. You're in print, brother.
Hey, I'm trying to be like Doc and use big words, okay?
Word of the
Doc
week.
ain't here to break them down into loose change.
Good point. Also, I'm a career police officer. I've been a police officer for going on 30 years now. Still doing it. Been interested in cryptids and things like this my entire life, whether it be from my sighting when I was a kid, the monster movies that I grew up watching, and just all that stuff fascinates me. And me and this knucklehead kind of hooked up, and how they say birds of a feather flock together. Well, we've been flocking together for
I think of it more in terms of our crazy connected well.
Yeah.
I was trying to be eloquent. See, I used another big word. Doc will be proud of me. But yeah, pretty much our crazy connected, and throw Doc and Steve in there too. And you just, it's recipe for disaster most of the time. But
Well, y'all, but that's what I like about y'all. Y'all like us, and some of our mutual friends. We take the subject seriously, but we like to have fun, and
You gotta
you got to have fun. When it comes time to be serious, it's you dig in, but I have a hard time listening to, I guess, speeches. You know what I mean? If somebody's there giving a presentation, a lot of people know how to do it, and they include the crowd to have a little humor. If they don't, I'm asleep, and that's on me because I just can't. I can't do that.
Isn't it true too? It's not what you do, it's who you do it with. And I've had some amazing jobs with good jobs with people I can't stand, and it was horrible. But I've had some pretty cruddy jobs with some amazing people, and it's who you're with that makes all the difference. We have a great crew here, clearly, and it's nice to see Robby and DA here have the exact same thing. You can feel it. You can feel the chemistry. So this
Definitely.
I'm jazzed for this show, guys. I think it's going to be great.
Well, when you get us all together, me, Robbie, Doc, and Steve, you get all of us together in the same area. If there's something creepy, we're going to be in the woods poking it with a stick.
Right.
People are running away. We're going, oh, well, let's go see what this is.
Yes. Yeah. And, probably one of the first times, when I first started getting into this, I still watch a lot of shows, but I think y'all were one of the first ones to bring up Dogman. And I'm like, whoa, what? And, y'all have had so many experiences. That's why I like talking to people like y'all, because it's not just one thing. When you get out there, you might be looking for Bigfoot, but there's so much other things that come along with it. You have to adjust the way you're thinking. And that comes along with your job too, right? You can't get boxed in and have a opinion before you get there. That's not good business. So
I had a Dogman encounter the first time I ever met you, Roger, when we had the Woodwalkers meet and greet at LBL, the first one.
Yeah.
That very night we ended up having something. I'm 100% sure it was a Dogman that was stalking us that night.
Wow. Were y'all kind of in the same area we were, or?
Yeah. Well, where we were camping, Greg Ogles took us back past the little visitor center, up that just after you pass it on the left when you go through Mumbers Bay, and you go up that go up the hill, and there's that little cutoff that goes to that first little graveyard up there. It cuts back right up there.
Well,
so probably 2-3 miles from where we were camping. And
Mumbers Bay, I talk to people that fish there all the time, have for 50 years, and if you ask them where not to go, that's on top of the list. If you're just wanting to go have fun and not, chase dogmen, stay away from that place. And that seems to be a place that pops up constantly.
That's this guy right here beside me too. He had one there too.
Ain't nobody's chasing Dogman. I assure you, he's chasing you.
Well,
seems to be how that goes.
About 3 years ago, I went to spend a week at LBL. I was pulling research for a book, and I wanted to walk the area, and I wanted to check out some of the stories. And I got there. I was supposed to meet a buddy there, Nick Valente. I was supposed to meet him there, and we were going to go explore LBL together. Well, I got there a couple days ahead of him, and me being me, I didn't want to wait, so I just jumped in with both feet. And flash forward to later that night, I'm in Mumbers Bay by myself at 2 a.m. So what do? It's one of the creepiest places I've ever been. What do? I park my van with the headlights on, and I get out and start walking around all by myself. So I walked down to the water's edge to look for tracks, and it was mostly rocky, so I couldn't find anything. So I started following the edge of the water, hoping to find some mud where I could maybe find tracks, and didn't really realize how far I'd gotten away from my van. I was probably 100 yards away, maybe not quite, maybe between 50 and 100. But I got the bright idea of playing predator calls on my phone.
Oh, gracious.
And I played Dying Rabbit. And you know how sound travels weird over water at night?
Oh, yeah.
I was not, and it was just off the speaker on my phone. It wasn't a Bluetooth speaker or nothing. I was not expecting it to be near as loud as it was. But this Dying Rabbit call blasts out over the bay, and like 10 seconds later, I hear things coming at me in the woods behind me, like from multiple directions. I'm like, I need to get my ass back to the van.
You're like, I done messed up.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong spot. They're fixing to have Fat Guy for breakfast. But
if you look at the time.
Yeah, so I'm hauling butt back down the edge of the lake, make it back to where the old boat ramp was, and I run up to the van, and I could still hear them coming at me in the woods. And I hit that van, had my long beams on, and I punched it, and I started backing out, played the headlights out across the woods, and there was about 6 sets of green eye shine staring at me from the woods. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the condo now.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, one of the guys I interviewed, just across, like if you go north on the water, they pulled over in the boat and cooked a few hot dogs. And that's when he saw his first couple Bigfoot in that area. So it's active. You never know what you're going to run up on.
Yeah. LBL is one of the oddest places I've ever been.
Yeah. And it's like, you can have 18 hours of nothing. And then you're like, why am I doing this? I need to get out of here. It's like, it's amazing. With all the wildlife, it's bad enough with them chasing each other around, much less with the weird stuff. And Robbie, what?
Also,
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
sometimes when people are talking, like they don't mean to make a thought. It's my brain making connections that may or may not be there. But what's interesting to me is I'm thinking about previous guests and their stories and just other people that I've talked to as well. Like, I almost wonder if the confusion or even fear is palpable to these creatures, whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, whatever. How many stories have we heard where people lost track of time, or it's getting dark, or they wandered too far from wherever their safety zone is, their cabin, their car, their whatever, and now, they're a little bit scared, a little bit panicked, maybe not even necessarily for cryptid's sake, but just, being out in the wilderness. I wonder if that makes you a beacon to these things that would have, under normal circumstances, left you alone.
I think they
Yeah.
firmly recognize when you are alone. They see you away from the rest of the herd, so to speak.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're vulnerable. But I'll tell you what else they recognize: the sound of the hammer on a 357 coming back.
Yeah.
They know what a gun is.
Yeah.
They do.
Yep. And going back to some of our mutual friends, and then things that happened to me, the bluff charge, the rock throws, or whatever. If I'm too old and fat to run, got a bad hip,
Same
so you kind of have to make a stand and like, please don't hurt me or whatever. And a lot of times they'll back off, if you show respect and head away. But there are certain times, see, what DA did was he created that situation with the call, the rabbit dying. So, hey, y'all, free lunch. And they're like, oh, a buffet, when they saw DA. But
I'm like Wagyu human. I'm really well marbled.
We both are.
Same here. So,
All parties involved.
Robbie, what happened to you that night? If you can.
Well, it was the first night not the first night. People would come in before that, but the first night that we had the big
bonfire,
and all that stuff. So after everybody kind of got done, it started getting real dark. Greg had asked us, he said, what do y'all want to see? And I said, well, I've had a Bigfoot experience. I said, because he said he knew there was a place where they had seen orbs. I said, I've never seen an orb. Let's go there. He's like, okay, cool. So that's where we go. We get over there, and of course, I'm gonna steal a line from DA. Me being me, we pull up there to the top, and we kind of turn back around, headed back down. So the front of the car is pointing back down towards that visitor center. The graveyard's on the right side of the car, and then there's that big long trail that goes back down in the woods next to some of the old campsites and the old homesteads that were no longer there. Let's put it that way. And it's got that big red gate that goes across the trail. So we're standing there, and they immediately say they start seeing orbs. Well, I'm thinking I'm seeing something, but I'm not 100% sure. So me being me, I looked at Greg and I said, I know this is stupid, but I'm going to walk about 50 yards down the trail.
And Robbie has a propensity for this. There's a reason my youngest son has the nickname, the official Robby Wrangler, because something happens, you look up and Robbie's gone.
It's serious when nicknames are involved.
That's right.
Yeah,
Robbie will go straight at it.
I don't have an off switch apparently. But anyway, so here I go off down. They're all back there. My daughter's like, Dad, what are you doing? I said, I got it. I'm good. Just stay up there. So I go down, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to get away from that audio stimulation of them talking about it, and then me think where I wasn't thinking, okay, my brain is just showing me what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening, or I was watching stuff, but I could focus on that before I heard them. So I would see what I thought was orbs, and I would hear them say, "Oh, you see that red one?" I'm like, okay, I am seeing something. I still don't know what I saw. I was seeing it. Well, while I was watching that, off to my right, I started hearing something walking through the woods. Kind of. I'm like, Don't know exactly what that is, but it's big. So I sat there and listened for a second, kept on moving. It got almost even with me. So I kind of turned to ease back down towards Greg. And when I got down, they hadn't heard any of that walking and twig snapping and all that stuff. And Greg's like, "Oh, Robbie, you scared off the orbs and all that stuff." And I leaned over his ear and I said, "There's something walking in the woods over there, back off to my," because I was turned around facing him at that, back off behind my right. Well, he stopped and he listened and he heard it move again. So we had a same parabolic mic that DA's got. It's just one of those cheap ones that, it's just got the earphones and
they work very well.
They do, but you can't record all. You can, but it's only like 12 seconds and it's on the actual thing. So it's not really worth trying to even record anything on it. But my future son-in-law was working those. So Greg and Johnny were standing here. Taylor was kind of back at the car, my daughter, and Tyler and I, my future son-in-law, we kind of move up just about 45 feet between Greg and me. And then, of course, Johnny standing beside Greg, Tyler standing beside me. Johnny looks over and gets my attention and lets me know he's going to do an owl call. He does an owl hoot. Immediately gets a response. Identical. You could tell it was a lot deeper than what he did, but it's identical. It mimicked him directly. We look at each other and I said, so he does it again. Same thing. We're like, oh man, this is cool. So I give him the sign again. He does it again. The third time, this is what we hear. Oh, oh, oh. Like it's like pissed off. Like, okay, I'm done playing with y'all.
Like, I'm done with the owl noises. Let's move on to something else.
We're like, okay. Well, as soon as that finished, this was off to our right that we're looking at. As soon as that finished, we hear 3 knocks off up to our left. When me and Tyler both spun around, I looked over at Greg and I said, "Did you hear that?" He's like, "Yeah, I heard it." So we're hearing this stuff like over here, but the road's kind of behind us, so we're kind of really not paying attention to that. Well, things just started kind of moving around. I'm like, wait a minute, my daughter's over there in the car. I'm dad for, I got to be back to dad. Then Tyler, it snapped in Tyler. Oh, I got to be fiance. So we kind of go over there to check on Taylor. Was we went back over to the car to check on her. Greg and Johnny kind of worked their way back around to the upper side of that cemetery. Was I'm leaning at the car to check on Taylor. Tyler hears something and he gets my attention. He points down, we were facing back down the hill. He kind of points down in that little tree line. That's little area just right off the side of the road, but it just drops down real steep. He said, "There's something down there." I got Greg and Johnny's attention, told them to watch their eyes. I had a headlamp. I was going to turn it on. So I'm looking down this incline. When I flip my headlight on, I hate saying headlight, makes me think I'm in a car, but my headlamp, excuse me. Right. So I flipped it on, and there's this tree probably about that big around down at what I thought was the bottom of this little ravine or hill or whatever you want to call it. But about what looked like it was about that far off the ground, there's 2 green eyes looking at us, just staring up at us. And I'm like, well, that's odd. Usually a small critter like that, as soon as you put a light on them, they're going to start moving, like trying to get away. But now it just kind of blinked. Now, every once in a while, they'd kind of move over and you'd lose one eye behind the tree, but it'd come back over and they were blinking. And Tyler, my future son-in-law, is 6'8", not a small youngin'. He's a big dude. You've heard us talk about the paradigm shift before. Well, I heard the gears grinding on his paradigm shift. He slipped his clutch because it totally freaked him out. He did not know what was going on. He was up there. We are armed. Whoever's down there, we're armed. We are armed up here. I heard him say armed like 12 times in a span of 30 seconds. I turned around and said, "All right, calm down." Well, and I'd got Greg and Johnny's attention. Greg comes over. He sees it. Johnny's over here to my left. He can't see it because he's looking right at that tree. He's like, what? I reached over, grabbed him, pulled him in front of me. I said, "Right there." And as soon as I pointed, he said, "Okay, yeah, I see it." He said, "That's a strange looking critter." But it's this whole time we're talking and doing all this, it's never moved, other than blinking the eyes and kind of moving around. And they were, when I described it, exact same color eye shine that DA saw, green, almost like a glowing green. Little bit different shade of the lightning on y'all's green screen background, about that color.
Robbie,
So-
can I
Really
ask you a
bright
question?
fluorescent one.
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead, Ashley.
So I'm imagining all of this as you're speaking it, and the comment about your son-in-law, you know, hey, we're armed, we're armed, we're armed, that kind of I'm assuming, you know, fear, adrenaline, everything.
It was
And
fear for him at that point.
you're
completely.
seeing something, you're trying to comprehend, he's having his whole worldview flipped upside down. You, as both of you, you know, being law enforcement, whatnot, obviously people can be scary too, like obviously, but do you think the fear was ultimately because of the unknown? Like, let's just say, eye shine or not, just like 4 regular dudes walked out and they were doing God knows what in the woods. Like, but I mean, at what point is
Do I
do
think
you think
Tyler
it's
would have reacted the same way if it'd been 4 guys?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
he would.
okay.
He would have went into a different mode.
Yeah.
He went into he was operating. It was primal fear because
Mhm.
he was
When-
and it was immediate. It wasn't like we sat there for a little while and it just kind of washed it. As soon as that eye shine was illuminated, he immediately was like, okay, this is not something that I recognize. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Now, I've
So-
been through that with Peyton because Peyton laughed. My son's in chat, and he said those 800-pound owls again had something similar happen during the day,
Yep.
and we looked at
Well-
each other like, oh. But when somebody gives that warning that we're armed, that's giving a human chance to speak up. If you don't
Reconsider.
speak up, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody's about ready to pull a trigger when you start giving that warning. So,
Well, so this all goes on. It's probably a minute and a half that this goes on. This thing's looking up at us. Well, while we're looking down there, Greg kind of worked his way back around and was looking back up behind us because he was worried about something coming back up or coming behind us because we had still just heard that stuff over there on the other side. We didn't know what was, if we were being surrounded or whatever. Well, he hears a twig or a branch or something snap up behind us. Well, I turned and looked so I could see where Greg was. And when I turned back around, whatever was in front of us was gone.
Just that fast.
That fast. I mean, literally the span of that, and it was gone.
well, I hate to interrupt you, Robbie, but
go
people
ahead.
that are listening, what's hidden in this is whatever this was has an intelligence and it thinks it's hid and it's peeking in and out. It's not running. A regular animal is going to run, and so for them to turn and split second turn back, it knows they're not looking at them. That's not normal for just animals. You know what I mean? They'll freeze, and then they'll decide to run and don't care and when it is. But when you look away, that's the same thing we would do. This is my chance, y'all. That shows intelligence that that a pig, even though a pig is smart, it's not going to do that. It's probably going to come out and try to eat you, or it's going to run immediately. So when I hear stories like this and there's obvious signs of intelligence, I have to point it out because we all might realize it, but people that will listen to this later may not realize that. So go ahead, Robbie. Sorry.
Well
No,
said, Roger.
I 100% agree with that. So it's gone. Well, it's kind of late at this point, and we're all just okay. Discretion is a better part of valor at this point. We don't know what's out here. Let's go ahead and go. So we take off, go home, or go back. We go back to the campsite, drop Greg off, and we go back to the hotel room. Well, I think Johnny, yeah, he come back to my room a little bit later after we got back, and we sat down and talked about it for a little bit. And he said, "Man, I just don't know what that was." I said, "I don't either." Well, we didn't get anything really resolved that night. Went to bed. Next morning we get up, we go to eat breakfast. We're sitting around all of us sitting around the breakfast table, and I think Tyler's the one that actually had the idea. He said, "You know what?" He said, "You know, we got the camera equipment." He said, "It'd be good to go back out where we saw that, and, you know, before we go back to the campsite and hang out with everybody." He said, "It'd be good to go back over there and get some like establishing shots and just some daytime photos, so we can kind of just correlate where everything was at." And I'm like, that's a pretty good idea. And Johnny said, "Yeah." And he said, "We can walk around, see if we see any tracks and things like that." And I'm like, "Yeah." So we go back up there, and Tyler gets back exactly where he was standing. He was standing on a little chunk of asphalt that broke, you know, those little rails that they used to put around the graveyards up there. There's a piece of it broke off, and he was standing on one of them, so he knew exactly where he was standing.
How old
So
was this graveyard?
Roger, how old do you think those
Well, LBL became LBL in 63. Most of those old family graveyards in there date back way before that, probably late 1800s.
Well, that was my next question. If it was a family one, like versus,
like
what's on private
LBL
property.
is dotted.
Actually, you can't turn down a road in the LBL without passing a graveyard.
No,
Yeah.
I've never. That's the most graveyards per capita of any place I've ever been in my entire life. They're all over the place.
What's confusing is if Ashley or somebody goes not knowing this, and you look at it and you say, well, there's one from 2011. They lied to me. No, the families can still use them if they choose to, or if they're still around. That was part of the deal, I guess. So you'll see. The one at Colson, I think, has some pretty new headstones. But
same with Nickel. Nickel Cemetery's got some fairly new ones.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's it's a strange. It's all we can say is it's a strange place. You don't. It's like the box of chocolates. You don't never know. You never know.
You never knows, right? So, quick question, Robby. He was describing, and you might actually tell us more about it when you're talking about going back and filming the next day. But you said I'm going to say animal or creature that you were observing was looking up at you. So was it kind of down in a ravine a little bit and down there standing, or was it laying prone? And
that's exactly where I'm getting to. Because that's what really. I knew there was something different or something. It was something, but honestly, I'm like, okay, it was not that high off the ground. It had to be something. It had to be, raccoon, squirrels. It had to be something like that because it was just too low to the ground. So we get back over there, and I stood in front of Tyler. We could see the tree, so I start walking down the hill, and leaf litter was like that thick at that time.
Wow.
Roger can tell you that when we were down there, it was just leaves were off the trees. It was
LBL's like that all the time.
Yeah, so it looked like the ground was a lot closer than what it was. When I get down to that tree and I turn around and look, I was in a saddle basically. You had this one that came down here, and then there was another one that came down, and there, right at where that tree was, there's another bank that went right up back behind me. So when I get to that tree, I was at the bottom of the ground, or where it comes together. So it wasn't like this thing was lower down than I thought it was. I look back and I was like, and if I take another step back away from this tree, I'm going to be going up the hill.
Oh, wow.
So I look back up at Tyler and I said, all right, I'm going to start lowering my head. You tell me when my head gets to where the level of, and remember I said I thought this thing was about 2 feet off the ground, about that high off the ground or so.
Yes, sir.
So I'm standing up. I'm about 5'9" to 5'10", depending on which gas station I'm walking out of.
Or how tall your hat is.
Yeah. Who put the tape up? Yeah.
So I start lowering my head down. I get back right here, and Tyler says, "Stop." And I'm like, no. And I look, and I'm still like 3.5, 4 feet off the ground. I hadn't even hardly been at all. So I called Johnny, and I told him to come down here, and he was like, or he walked over where Tyler was. He said, well, it must have just been further back. And I said, Johnny, that bank behind me is literally like a step behind me. I said, if I take a step back, I'm going to be going up. And it would have been up higher than what it was. So whatever it was just standing there kind of bent down. It wasn't laying on the ground. It wasn't a small, it was literally like just kind of hunched down looking up at us.
Was it kind of like a drainage ditch? Or
yeah, it's like you had one that came down, the one we were looking down, and then another one came down, met, and then they kind of both went down towards where the road was. But so there was a bank here, the bank that we were standing up on, and they funneled into a third one.
So a perfect spot
Oh,
if you're
wow.
spotted to get away and have a choice which way
Yep.
you
And
can
like
go.
I said, the
There-
leaf litter was about that thick, so
right.
that's why we never heard anything when it. And Johnny's not. I mean, he's not deaf and he's not really hard, but he wears those bionic ears just to help because he works in a machine shop and he welds, and it just helps him out a lot. Well, when he was over there walking around looking at it, he couldn't even hear me going down the hill or moving around with
Oh,
those
wow.
things.
That's
So-
pretty isolated sound wise.
And
Yeah.
look, y'all, we had something big come behind our tent. I was within 3 feet of this thing, congested breathing at Colson. Now, Gary's in chat. He heard it, found tracks the next day. That thing was moving. This one, the thing that come behind us, didn't care if we heard it. Okay. I don't know what it was.
Not terrifying at all.
No, it actually bumped into Naoma's car, which was right beside me.
Mhm.
And she thought it was one of us going to relieve ourselves. I'm like, no, you almost got Naoma. But I don't know what it was. But now you can look at this several different ways. I'm the biggest, baddest thing here. I don't care if you see me or not. Then you've got the sneaky ones. So we hear from a lot of people, even talking to Kane a few weeks ago about the lookouts and how they do things and have different jobs. And I know people are like, how do y'all know this? Well, this is what we do. We talk to people all over the country. DA and Robby, they are boots on the ground. They talk to people. So you kind of piece it together like a puzzle, so to speak. So yeah, that I'm like, Ashley, the heavy footfalls in the leaves is scary, but something sneaking intelligently scares me a whole lot more.
Agreed.
Well,
Because it
just-
takes, I personally don't, but I grew up around, hunters and things like that all the time. My brothers, my dad, and everything. And, they would taught you, how to walk through all of that to where you could be quiet and stuff. So it takes, again, something with extreme intelligence to know how to walk through all of that, to be as large as a Sasquatch or a possible Dogman, since we're in LBL, to not make any sounds like that. So it just,
just earlier this year, back in January, Robby and I nearly got ourselves cut off. We were down in an area here in
Being
Missouri
ourselves.
being ourselves. We were down in an area called Moon Valley, and we first started out trying some calls. We'd done a few whoops and nothing happened. And I have a working theory that what a lot of people refer to as tree knocks are actually made with their mouth, like this.
Oh, you were good. Do that again.
You should hear me do it in like a big room.
Well-
in fact, down at the lake, I can make it echo across the lake.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But
And-
I did that a few times, nothing. And Doc did a few owl calls. And then Robby did a wolf call, and we immediately got an owl call back. The same owl call that Doc had just done. And Doc intentionally did an owl that was not indigenous to our area. It was a West Coast owl, and there aren't any of those in Missouri. So we got that West Coast owl call back. And then Doc got this is middle of the night, early January. It's cold as hell out there. And Robby and I were kind of off the one side we're on a low water bridge. And Doc and my son Noah were back by the vehicle. And Doc's like, hey, I'm getting on something on thermal. And he started pointing it out, and he sees two figures, like whole head and shoulders, leaning out from behind trees, watching us about, what do you say, about 50, 60 yards from where the truck was?
Yeah.
Maybe
like
a
that.
little more. So Robby and I had headlamps on, but they were off. So we start moving toward the heat signatures, and Doc says, I'm going to turn the heat signature off. Once you light it up and see if we can verify what I'm seeing on the thermal. So he turns it off, and Robby and I light up our cameras, and we immediately saw the full conical, the full head, the dark fur, the shoulders. We see them both duck right back behind the tree.
Oh,
So
I got
Robby-
chills as you said that. That's
So
ugh.
Robby and I turn our lights back off. Doc turns the thermal back off and back on. And Robby and I keep getting closer. We were trying to get up close enough to where we could actually see them with unaided. But as we're getting close, we're probably 10 yards from where those two things were still peeking out behind the tree because Doc was watching them. And we were at that point probably 50 yards away from the truck. And Doc starts going, fall back, fall back. And I'm like, why? He's like, because there's another one between you and the truck. Get back to the truck. It had moved out of the trees behind us and was trying to block us off from getting out. And at that point, I put my hand on Robby's shoulder and we both drew our pistols, and I was covering the side and the road next to us while Robby covered the two that were watching us originally, and he walked backwards and I'm covering one direction and watching where we're going, and we got back to the truck, but we almost got cut off.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what caliber pistols were you guys
we're both carrying 1911s.
45s.
45s, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if, you know, the joke about a 22 will just piss them off. Like, I'm just wondering what you had.
Well, one of the things that we, after Doc was an Air Force flight medic, combat medic, and Steve is a registered nurse, and we have talked to a couple guys who are veterinarians, and what we've done is we've kind of done a breakdown analysis of most mammals, and this applies to primates, it applies to horses, it applies to dogs. In similar positions in most mammals, the same big veins go to the same areas.
Yeah.
Up in the neck, you've got the jugular the jugular vein and the carotid artery. Those are heavy. In the upper arm, on the inside of the arm, you have the brachial artery. Down in the groin area, you've got heavy arteries, and on the inside of the thighs, you've got the what arteries are those called, Robby?
Jugular or the
no, not the ones in the legs.
Oh, in the legs, femoral.
The femoral arteries, and those tend to be close to the surface and in the same spot on pretty much every mammal. And if you look at anatomy of a great ape compared to a human, those big veins are almost in identical places. So what we've devised is, if we have to shoot, and I hope we never do, but if we have to shoot, we're going to aim for the big arteries.
Yeah.
We're not going to try to punch through all that muscle and bone. We're going to aim for those arteries, and we drill for that. When we go to the range, we set up band-shaped targets, and that's what we drill. So, you know, it's not one of those cases where we hope we engage one. If we have to engage, we're going to do as much damage as we can as we fall back. But it is never our intention to be the guy that brings one in. We don't go out looking to shoot one, but we do plan to come home. Because I don't know where y'all are from, but up here in Missouri, we got black bears, we got mountain lions, we've got bobcats, we've got wolves, we've got cougars, we've got all manner of nope ropes, just all kinds of snakes. And the most dangerous of them all, we like to refer to as the greater North American meth head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're multiplying like crazy.
Yep.
So, you know, I know y'all have heard or read the report by Daniel Boone, with him and his son and what happened there. And he supposedly dissected a little bit and said the breastplate was just massive and covered way more area. The sternum and all covered way more area and
MK
vitals
Davis was saying the same thing. MK said that when you see a Bigfoot, if you looked at one and estimated that it weighed, say, 800 pounds, he said they are so dense that it's probably twice what you estimate it to be. So like the Patterson Gimlin, most people would estimated that was, I think most estimates are around 7 feet tall and in the ballpark 800 pounds. MK said it's probably closer to 1,500 pounds.
Well, look, when you watch the breakdown, when Patty steps in slow motion, and you see the shockwave run up the thigh.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not
a lot of force coming down.
That's a lot of force. And she wasn't running. She wasn't jumping. She was strolling.
Walking.
Yes.
Yep. She wasn't hard stomping either. And that glide everyone talks about for creatures that are so massive. You know, it's funny. I have 2 nephews and they're brothers, and they're about 4 years apart. And the oldest one is tall and lengthy. You can just pick him up, throw him around, you know, but the younger one is a dense block, and even though he doesn't weigh as much as his older brother, you can't pick him up. And to think that these, just as a visual example, I mean, body shape has so much to do with it. And while reports of tall, skinny Bigfoot aren't necessarily unheard of, you know, even the females are so massive, and it's like, man, you'd think they'd be hibernating all the time for as much energy as it takes to move such mass all the time.
Well, I was just talking to RPG Ryan Gobleski just the other day, and he has a theory on why that they are the way they are. And Robbie and I've been talking about the theory for a long time that we think they spend a great deal of time underground. And RPG believes that because they spend so much time underground, it acts like a natural compression chamber, like a person that because of that, it actually has changed their metabolism slow enough that they don't require as much food. And that makes a lot of sense.
That does make a lot of sense, actually,
That
because
would
I know
account for a lot of. Sorry, Amanda, go ahead.
That's okay. I know where DA is at there in Missouri. I know how much the cave systems and stuff are so prominent, or at least I hear about them over there in that area. I know that's how it is here in Appalachia as well. You know, the cave systems and the underground stuff is. We hear that theory a lot.
The U.S. Geological Survey just released a report last year saying that they now believe the Mammoth Cave system extends from northern Maine to southern New Mexico.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
That to me, that's a cryptid superhighway.
Well,
agreed.
Tell them about the marker dye at Bennett Springs.
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, there's a natural springs just outside of the town I grew up in, Bennett Springs State Park. You can look it up. But back in the 70s, they wondered where that spring came up, so they released a radioactive marker dye into that spring, and all across the country they were telling other parks to watch for this specific marker. They were looking for the signature to emerge from the spring. They released it, and 6 months later, it came up in Alaska.
Wow.
That is beyond fascinating. Wow.
So, assuming that those caves aren't flooded all the time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just how far
and it accounts for other things too. If you're talking about a stable temperature, because we all know that caves keep temperature, presumably the oxygen levels would be quite regular as well.
Hyperbaric chamber. That was the word I was looking for. That's what RPG was talking about. Is he thinks because they spend a lot of time deep that it acts like a natural hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
We're gonna get him on the show, and we're gonna do a whole thing talking about the underground stuff.
And this is a theory that we've been working on for what 2.5 years, DA.
About that.
So you think about there was a show, and I can't remember. I don't know if it was a documentary or just a show. But we got to talking about this is where we started formulating this theory. There was a guy who was born completely blind, never seen anything a day in his life, but he had taught himself how to echolocate by clicking his tongue.
The young gentleman.
I've seen that.
Yes.
I've seen that.
So,
and he can navigate
he can ride a bike. Yeah.
I know exactly an obstacle course on the bike.
The show come out and set up an obstacle course, and put all these obstacles in his way and everything, and a little something clicked his way around that thing and never hit anything. So I had seen that show, but I never put two and two together. Well, me, DA, and his son Noah were talking. I think we were even backstage. We weren't even on the show at the time.
I think it was just after a show we got to talking about it.
And we were talking about the tongue clicks and things like that. And I said, wait a minute. If they are subterranean, like we've been thinking, how would this be if they actually did that tongue clicking? They just used that as echolocation. They're in these big, vast underground caverns. I mean, we've always said
when you can make any noise you want, some of these creatures.
Yep. But we've always said look into nature and what we already know to answer some of these questions that we can't answer. Is echolocation something that we know of in known species? Yeah. Bats, whales, dolphins. I mean, it's something that's already been studied and already been proven is there.
There's a mouse that does it too.
Yeah.
I just can't remember which one does it. Roger, you're naked.
So, and
if I can't hear you,
if a man who was born
I had
blind,
to take a meth break.
Great
to do that. Why can't these things do?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and also too, so for you guys don't know, or maybe you can surmise by my username there, I'm really big into water cryptids, and we talk about the underwater tunnels and channels and things like that. And something that has come up in my conversations too are mineral compounds, because mankind is discovering new things all the time. Just because we have a current periodic table doesn't mean that we've discovered everything there is to discover. Who's to say there's not minerals and vitamins and other types of nutrients and supplements that, I mean, maybe deep in these caves there's some rock you can lick and you're good for a year. Like who knows? Like
Yeah, we just don't know. Well,
yeah.
they were also saying that some of the components found in mushrooms,
Yes.
psilocybin, something like that. I can't remember
Yep.
exactly. They're
What
saying
he
that
said.
some of those components not only can cure cancer,
Yeah.
but extend the human life like double.
Yeah.
Right. And if
So-
these creatures are as much as in tune with nature as they are, as compared to what us humans are, then they would have this kind of knowledge of these
These-
kinds of things.
The
And a lot of
science
folks-
Plants
coming
and-
out of sorry, there was a delay. I didn't mean to cut you off, Amanda.
No, go ahead. I finished my thought. You're good.
The science coming out of Korea and Japan right now, as far as mushrooms being like just crazy connected to human DNA, is pretty fascinating. And right now, the experimentations they're able to do with skin rebuilding, the theory is within 50 years we'll be able to skin graft using mushrooms. So not even having to take skin from other body parts, or even some countries even use fish scales. I mean, we've come a long way, but imagine just something so renewable like mushrooms and you can rebuild.
Damaged tissue.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
So one of the other theories we've talked about, me and Robby discussed this a number of times on the show. I'd kind of like to get you guys' intake on it. We hear all the time stories about Bigfoot walking with its knees bent.
Mm-hmm.
Robby, how are we trained to walk when we're stacking to enter a building? I was on the riot team for 3.5 years. When you walk, you keep your knees bent. You walk, heel to toe, those knees bent. That way you don't bounce. Your weapon always stays at the same level, and you're making far less noise walking with your knees bent. It's just not natural for us. But if we can learn to do that. What's to say they don't realize? If I walk with my knees bent and I present a slow heel to toe motion, the noise is going to be minimal. And that's the way we're drilled to walk when we clear a building.
And they might actually be built for it too. We talk about the mid-tarsal break all the time and how that's different. Obviously humans don't have that. Bigfoot presumably have that naturally. Who's to say that it might be the reverse for them. It might be uncomfortable for them to walk in the same gait that we do, and they naturally are just bent and as a result quiet. They may not even be trying to be quiet. It may just be baked into their design. Who knows?
Well, my 2 cents of seeing the one walk up the hill. I think it's possible all of y'all could be a little bit right, but also coming from a background of playing a little football and coaching for about 10 years. If you guys are coming into a building like that and you got your knees bent, if you have to turn, if you have to go sideways, backwards, or whatever, you're in position to move quickly. And then also they would be, now think about this also, Robby, if I was to put a 800-pound backpack on you and you standing straight up, what would happen to your knees?
They're gonna get more shot than they already are.
Yeah. So I think those are the right questions, because it took me years after seeing this thing and putting it together with the way the feet were moving up that hill with the back almost straight, comparing it to a walking horse gait, and how they judge the competition over in Shelbyville, Shelbyville, is they stand up in the stirrups, the rider does, and that head is smooth. That's how you win a grand national championship, is that head. There's no head bob. So I'm thinking, it was weird enough that I'm thinking something like y'all are thinking, like, how is this possible? How is this quiet? How they move quietly, being so big, with the foot so big. And then you talk to people like Kane and other people that have tracked them, and you find out they'll reach up and grab a limb and swing over change directions and it looks like it disappears, the trail picks back up on the other side of this tree, So there you go again, intelligence. But I think those are good questions. I think that's good. It's a good theory, because there's not enough people asking those questions. So, and another thing, when you see something weird, it causes you to ask those questions. How did that thing sneak up on me? How did it get away from me? Because one of the most terrifying things I've ever had was that mouth pop going on in the broad daylight, nothing in between us, and I couldn't see it. And I could hear the resonance in the throat and the sinus cavity. It wasn't rock on rock. So,
well, why I started doing that is, as a kid growing up on a farm outside of Lebanon, Missouri, I used to hear that from the woods. And as a kid, I could mimic birds, and I could call in turkey without a turkey call. Yep. I would mimic the sounds I heard. I was just a farm kid in the 70s, wasn't much TV. So if the sun was up and I didn't have chores to do, I was out playing in the woods. And I heard that popping sound, and I would try to mimic it. I mean, I've tried like that, and the flicking your jaw to try to make it, or hitting your throat. Couldn't quite make it, but then I started practicing with my tongue, and it took me a long time to master it. But I can do it pretty loud, and I'm just a 250-pound hillbilly. Imagine an 800-pound gorilla, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so we get people all the time. Trolls will make comments. They'll watch 2 minutes of a show, and it's obvious they didn't watch the whole thing, because they'll comment and on something that you spent a lot of time going over. Too. Yeah. And everyone, Ashley, the way he did that noise and the way you just did it, they all have a different sound.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And even with just using my tongue, you can ask Robby, I can make a ton of different tones. I've learned to do it over the years. I can increase the tone. I can increase the frequency. And this is just me teaching myself how to do it. I can make a whole bunch of different sounds with just my tongue.
You can tell I'm easily amused. Like, yay, silly noise.
No, but it is confusing if you hear a noise in an area where you grew up. You know, like you said, I did the same thing as a kid. We didn't have anything, so I pretty much knew every sound you could hear. Now,
well, I always knew something was up, because my grandparents and my parents and my aunts and uncles, they'd call me by my first name. I go by DA now, but they'd say, Douglas, you better have your ass back in the house by dark, because them boogers will get you.
Yep.
The boogers again.
Amanda, does that sound
all the time growing up?
So that's the thing.
You stay the hell out of them woods, and once it gets dark, them boogers will get you. They'll carry you off.
I said that, I had my sighting my first sighting when I was a kid, literally, just across the road from where I'm sitting right now. And my great grandmother, who pretty much kept me my entire young life before she died, but she would always say the same thing, because I would get the same way DA's talking about. I mean, they had a farm, and when I was home, especially in the summertime when I wasn't in school, I was out in the woods playing. I mean, that's just what you did back then. You didn't stay inside and do this kind of stuff. I mean, you was out, or stay inside. You didn't have it. But even if you'd had it back then, my pa and granny wouldn't let me do that. I'd been outside doing something. But she would be like, "Don't you go too far in them woods, and boogers will get you." And, as a kid, you're just thinking, well, especially back then, because there was not the internet to figure out what in the world booger was. I just thought it was monster. I just thought that's what she was talking about.
I'm going to segue on Amanda's behalf here. Amanda, you have stated publicly quite a few times that you thought a booger meant ghost growing up, and it wasn't.
Yeah, it was either I had always assumed booger was just a all-encompassing umbrella term for either a monster or a ghost, anything spooky ooky whatever in the woods. That's just what boogers. You watch out for the boogeyman kind of stuff. I had never assumed that booger meant Bigfoot specifically, because at least in my particular incidents, the booger that my grandmother was referring to was actually Bigfoot, and I had assumed that it was a ghost on that property. So
My
What
my
about you,
uncle
DA
Buddy,
and Robbie?
my
Hey,
uncle Buddy, he was
Can I interrupt
married to
for a
my mother.
second?
Sure.
DA, can you turn your mic up just a little?
I guess as far as it goes, I've been having trouble with this mic.
Okay.
I'll try to get a little closer to it.
I can hear you. Peyton just messaged me, said I turned it up on this end a little bit earlier.
Okay.
That's how I lost my background.
Oh, all right. I'll try to keep the mic up close.
You're good. You're good.
My Uncle Buddy was married into the family. He married my mother's sister, my Aunt Violet. But Uncle Buddy was full-blood Cherokee.
okay.
And I remember as a kid, all my aunts and uncles tell me about the boogers. And we used to go out to Uncle Buddy's place. And I don't know if you're familiar with the layout of the state of Missouri, but there's a little bitty town called Eldridge, Missouri. And his house was about 7 miles outside of Eldridge. And Eldridge isn't exactly civilization as most folks know it. Eldridge is a poke and plumb town. You poke your head out the window and you plumb through it. It's got a gas station and a post office and a couple of houses, and that's about it. But Uncle Buddy that was the closest town he lived to. When I say he lived out in the sticks, he lived out in the sticks. And I remember one time as a kid, I would ask all my aunts and uncles, about these creatures, about Bigfoot and stuff. And most of the time they just told me, oh, you're just a goofy kid. You don't know what you're talking about. But Uncle Buddy was the first adult that ever confirmed those things were out there. And he put me on his lap one time when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And he says, I'm going to tell you something. He said, those things are real and they're on this land and you need to be careful when you're in the woods. And from then on, I was just like laser locked. And I asked him, I said, so what is a booger? And he says, it's a Sewell-Kaloo. And I said, what's a Sewell-Kaloo? He goes, well, you know it as Bigfoot.
Wow.
Can you say that name again that he called it?
It's a Cherokee word, Sewell-Kaloo.
Sewell-Kaloo?
Yep, Sewell-Kaloo.
Sewell-Kaloo.
And just for reference, one of my favorite movies, John Wick, is Baba Yaga, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Baba Yaga
that's
is
a
a
Russian
female
story.
witch. That always drives me crazy. It's not. I get your lore right.
Sewell-Kaloo is
huge fan.
It's spelled T''SUL space K''ALU, isn't it, Robbie? Sewell-Kaloo.
So say DA for me one more time.
Sewell-Kaloo.
It sounds an awful lot like the Cajun Rougarou.
Rougarou.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Two different things, but the pronunciation is similar.
And
but
you'll notice Native American tribes all across the U.S. all have different names for the same creature. I mean,
they do. This one I just hadn't heard before. I've heard
the Lakota call it Shiyetanka, but Sewell-Kaloo is the one I first knew it as.
So, all right. So now y'all have a show. You have a lot of former police officers, current police officers, probably his friends. What do they think about this? Have you had others come to you privately and tell you stories?
Well, as cops, we go to other agencies for training. Or if you have a training event, agencies from like 20 different agencies send officers. So I got a chance to meet a lot of officers from surrounding areas. I mean, we would do like Homeland Security training for bomb threats, and there would be like officers from all over the state. So we got a chance to actually get to know officers from different parts of the country. Plus, sometimes you have double cross agencies working on the same event, that kind of thing. But I got to know a lot of cops all over my area, and I've heard a lot of really good stories. Some of them probably blow your mind. But and I'm sure Robbie's got the same effect. But yeah, there's so many cops that have come to me and said, "I'm going to tell you a story, but you can't tell anybody." In fact, one of the people that's in the audience tonight, James Jenkins, was one of my lieutenants, and he went with us last year when we did our overnight boat expedition into Combs Ferry. And I think he came out of there a believer, because he first thing he told me was, I realized something now. I said, what's that? He goes, I wasn't carrying enough gun.
Oh, and that's a bad feeling. And for people joining, we don't carry them. We're not hunting Bigfoot. We carry them for safety reasons. For other things.
Most of us were carrying 9mm that night. Since that event, Lieutenant Jenkins now has a Desert Eagle 50 and a 500 Magnum.
Yeah,
Wasn't
when
he ain't playing around.
Gun?
44 Magnum
at 500.
Dirty Harris. 500. Yeah.
He got the Smith and Wesson 500,
50
5-shot
cal.
revolver.
Whew.
Yeah, that thing kicks like a mule.
That would probably hurt my bone in my arm.
It's fun to shoot.
Years ago. Yeah. Quick story. We had a DA here. He had a 50 cal Desert Eagle, and I shot it 1 time, 2 times, and I handed it back. I was like, I'm done. It wasn't as bad as probably a revolver, but
I've shot that 50 Desert Eagle and that 500 Magnum. The 500 Magnum's got way more recoil.
Oh yeah.
But I'd
Did
shoot
you have
any
to
of
wear
them
a
again.
sling after?
No, I got thick wrists like King Kong.
I know especially Amanda, she probably takes reports from people that don't want it even written down because of obvious reasons. I have people in this county that have jobs that I can't say their names. I wouldn't do that to them because of what they do. But I appreciate it because it shows trust, because you could really put somebody in a bind, and the more you show people that you're trustworthy, the more they'll come to you. And what gets me is, on the ride-alongs, I do a ride-along once a week, 12-hour shifts. I would be bored, show up, and sometimes I'd be driving the car I wasn't supposed to be doing. I would be checking, the officer would be asleep, and I'd just be, driving around, checking everything. So, you're out there by yourself. DA, we talked about it. Sometimes you were the only one. There was no backup. Similar situation here. When you see something you're not supposed to see like that, you almost have to, it's human nature to tell somebody, and you're kind of in a situation where you can't. So I feel like that's why certain groups kind of stick together, where they can talk amongst each other. And
when I was with the sheriff's department, there was 0 chance I would have put something like that in a report. Not happening. But the last department I worked for was out in Walnut Grove, Missouri. My chief out there is named Joe Mahan. Joe's a great dude. I would have called Joe and go, guess what just freaking happened? He'll go, for God's sake, don't put it in the report, but tell me the whole story.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was like people that don't realize, I don't know if your department was like ours. If a report's written during the night, it goes into the basket, and then it's there available for the reporters to come in, say 9 o'clock in the morning, and they'll filter through the reports, and they'll pick the most juiciest one. And you bet your butt that one would have been the first one to come out of there. So
all of our reports went straight into the computer, so they would get flagged for reading in the morning.
Yeah, it amazed me getting into this early on, at how many police officers, are now spending time researching, looking for these things. But it's in your blood. That's what you do anyway. So if you see something strange, that makes sense to me, that you're going to try to figure it out.
I went to a training class down in Branson, and there was a bunch of officers there from other sheriff's departments and other law enforcement agencies, and got to talking about, just kind of brought Bigfoot up. And, for the most part, everyone was like, oh, no, joking about it and stuff. But after everybody cleared out, one guy sat down with me. He goes, I got a story to tell you.
Yeah.
He said,
that's who it's going to be good.
He said, I got a story to tell you, but you got to promise me you ain't ever going to tell my name with this. I said, okay. And he still works for that county as far as I know. But he tells me, he said, okay, I got a spot in the Mark Twain National Forest where I used to go deer hunting every year. He said, I went to the same spot year after year. I said, okay. So, well, one morning I got out there real early, and I went out to my deer stand, parked my truck, and hiked into my deer stand. He said, I had one of them soft-sided lunch boxes with a ice pack in it. He said, nothing big, just an apple and a couple of bologna sandwiches, basics. He said, so I climbed up my deer stand, and I wrapped that strap around my leg so if I dozed off, it wouldn't drop. And he goes, sure enough, I dozed off. He says, and I woke up, felt like something was pulling on that lunchbox. And I said, well, what happened? He said, I opened my eyes and I looked at my knee, and this thing's head was even with my knee. And he says, I was a good 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I said, what'd you do? He said, I unclipped that strap and gave him the lunchbox.
That's right.
And I said, do you ever thought ever occurred to you to taking a shot? He goes, dude, I was packing for deer. He says, if I'd had an RPG, I don't think I'd have taken that thing out. He said, I let it at the lunchbox. I said, well, then what'd you do? He said, well, I listened until I was sure it was gone. Then I climbed down out of the deer stand. I went back to my truck and I sold my deer equipment. I have never been back. He says, in fact, if you want that deer stand, I'll tell you how to get it, but I'm not going back out there.
That says a lot.
He was done. Never deer hunted. It was a dude that was, loved deer hunting, and has not hunted since because of that.
Yeah, and that, like Ashley said, that changes you at something up close, and you said it earlier. You can't tell people the mass. You can't explain it because it's just so incredible and it's terrifying. And to have one walk up and try to steal the lunchbox, that terrifies me because
he said I wasn't fixing to die over 2 bologna sandwiches and an apple.
And think about this. Think about this. The people that go 30 foot up in a climber stand. I don't do that, but how many people do you know that have talked about trees being pushed over by the roots?
Oh yeah.
And
that's actually one of my favorite recent phenomena, the trees moving on their own.
We just found one, a good sized tree that had been pushed over. I forgot this until just now. I was going to send Robby the pics. Robby, do you remember down in Joe Bald where we found that hunting blind with the nest on its side? There's a tree pushed over on it now. A good sized tree. And
like
I went up and hit
up?
Yeah, I went up and tapped the tree. It's not, the wood wasn't rotten. That was, in fact, the leaves that were on the tree were still green.
Yeah.
Wow.
I ran up on a similar situation, interviewing on site a few months ago. The guy, they had something walking and they couldn't see it, but they could clearly hear it on 2 feet. We went back to film in the location, and one of the healthiest big trees you've ever seen was pushed over almost on his stand. It was still up. I didn't think about that being something that they might do mad to try to run you out, but that's odd. And now if it had been 5 trees laid over or twisted, and we know that wind and tornado and all that, but just one collapsing and the roots came up with it. So I don't know. And it wasn't wet. We know it'll rain for a few days, then the wind to get up. Yeah. Some trees will come up like that, but that's not what happened here. Man.
I was recently introduced to the theory or concept that a lot of the and when I say bent trees, I don't mean like the smaller kind of like Charlie Brown trees, but like the massive trees that have no reason to be bent over and pulled out of the ground is a mating ritual, basically showing, like, I guess the concept or the idea would be strength and being able to provide kind of thing. That's a theory, is that when you see the bigger trees that are just tipped over, that aren't structures, but just evidences of those things being moved, or huge boulders, that it's potentially a mating ritual. I don't know how I feel about it, but it was an interesting conversation nonetheless.
It makes as much sense as any other theory out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, because we just don't know. I mean, that's one of the things we always tell everybody on our show. They're no experts in this field, so your theory is just as good as anything we come up with until we know for sure it's just as solid as anything anyone else comes up with.
Exactly.
And coming from experience and hearing different, similar sounds but a little different, Peyton and I, we were talking when I think we were coming back from Gatlinburg. We were talking, just throwing stuff at the wall, and I'm like, what if these Bigfoot come through and you hear the tree knock or whatever? What if they're going through and testing for hollow trees where they could, push it over and get a family of raccoon or squirrels out, and like, we don't know that, but you write it down and leave it for later. And that's as plausible as anything we know, that big hand slapping against a tree. Because what got that started, we had a tree fell over while we were in the woods, no wind. It was a good sized tree. And it didn't come up by the roots because, when a tree comes up by the root, you hear the thump where they're pulling apart, right?
That
Mhm.
ripping, tearing sound.
Right. So this was almost like the firecracker sound where it was maybe pushed, a few feet up and it started breaking and collapsing, and there was no reason for it. But it happened 2 times within 2 weeks in the same spot. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I know somebody told me bears might do that, push a tree
Maybe.
over and then dig through it, so I just think it's good to put it out there. If somebody in the audience knows some researchers, hey, go ask them if they think that's plausible or, see what
Well,
they
we
think
know
about it.
bears will rip the bark off trees looking for grubs.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. We've heard reports, probably from the same people where they caught them digging in the dirt and, eating something. So that's probably, and people ask all the time, well, what did it eat? I said, well, probably anything they want. to.
Whatever they damn well want. That's
But-
I
clear.
think they're omnivorous. I think they'll eat anything
Me
that's
too.
going to provide nutrients.
And
Mhm.
they'd almost have to be, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Kind of like we use bears as a comparison on when we talk about it all the time. Now down here in the lower 48, we've got black bears. Black bears will eat anything: berries, roots, roadkill, deer. They'll eat just about anything. Squirrels,
Picnic
if they can get a hold of it.
baskets.
Right? Definitely picnic baskets. But black bears, other than the last few months, have historically not been that aggressive. Most of the time, you make a big loud noise or shoot a gun in the air, black bear's gone. You go a little farther north into grizzly territory, they're still omnivorous. They'll eat roots and berries, but they eat a lot more meat. They got a lot more body mass to support. They eat more meat. You get even farther north into polar bear territory, and they don't eat berries. They eat people. They eat seals. They eat fish. Meat's on the menu. That is all they eat. And I think the same thing was with Bigfoot. The colder the climate, the more they're going to have that heavy protein to survive.
Mhm. It's all
Yep.
about the nutrients that they need for
Makes
the
sense.
area.
For sure.
All right. Speaking of food, Bigfoot food. Hold on a second. I heard y'all tell this story, and I found it amazing. Y'all said it turned a non-believer into a believer. Can you tell everybody what that is?
Robbie, go ahead, brother. You ain't been talking in a while.
Come on, Robbie.
Well, this was our Combs Ferry expedition, and Wyatt Estes and I were in the back, and we were just kind of hanging back at the back end of the line when we were walking through, and I was looking at Wyatt. He was off to my left, and everybody had headlamps on, but we didn't have them, or had them on as in they were on our heads, but they weren't on. Was I'm looking at Wyatt while he was saying something to me. I just see something in the train, just something didn't look right about it. Didn't look like just limbs. And I said, "Hold up, Wyatt." I said, "Cover your eyes." And I clicked it on, and that's what I saw. And Wyatt was like, yeah.
It's kind of a haunting image, really. Like it's
Especially when you're standing there and you cut your light on and you're in the pitch black and you cut your light on and that's what you see hanging in the tree.
Well,
literally
down on that branch,
20
you can
feet.
see the blood is still fresh, and so is the blood on the ground beneath it. Initially, we thought this was a mountain lion, but what you can't tell from this image is that tree is only about the diameter of a softball, and those
Right.
branches that hide is woven around are no bigger than a quarter. Those are
wow.
not big enough.
So-
those are not big enough to have supported a mountain lion.
How high is this approximately?
Robbie, you were the first one to find it.
It was
I'm gonna
above
pull up
Steve's
the
head.
other image, Roger.
Steve's about what, 6'1",
oh, it gets
6'2", I
worse.
think.
6'2", somewhere, and it was a good 1.5 to 2 feet above his head.
So
He's
somebody
actually
could have
above head
thrown
level.
it.
Yeah. So I would say it's probably 7.5 feet off the ground.
Oh
So,
no, then they just
okay.
reached up and put it there.
So, okay. I got questions. So that's fresh meat, right?
Pretty
Yes, sir.
much, yeah.
That's destroyed. That's even the hair. You see the hair, it looks like it's trauma, right?
Mechanically separated is the term Steve used.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Steve's an RN. He said that has been mechanically separated. Like, for example, if an alligator had grabbed a hold of it and did a death roll and twisted it off. He said
Right.
this was grabbed, broken, and twisted off. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Missouri, but we don't get a whole lot of alligators up here.
right.
Mm-mm.
Tree climbing alligators.
Yeah.
Climbing alligators.
So
Well, this
All
gets
right.
even better. So
now, okay, I have seen stuff like this before, but not to this extent where
we
it
found
might
it
be a
several times.
hind quarter. We found a hind quarter in a tree. Did the best I could to see if there's any cut marks or whatever, any bite marks, but whatever, could it have been a mountain lion where we were at? Possibly.
I don't think a mountain lion would have wrapped it around those trees.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
I was just looking at that in more detail with this image. Wait, if you look at the very top of the image, at the center of the tree right there, there's like a little broke off branch looking thing, or at least is what it looks like. And you can actually see the hide is wrapped around that right there. So
like it was wrung out.
And the fact that it was so fresh too is what's so interesting.
And this was the middle of summer. There wasn't a fly one on it.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Okay.
My
that's
stepdad has been in law enforcement had been in law enforcement for 40 plus years. I showed him that picture, and he said, "There's only two things could have done that." I said, "What's that, Dad?" He said, "A Bigfoot or a man." He said, "I don't." He said, "Y'all were the only ones there, right?" I said, "Yes, sir."
We had to get in there by boat in the middle of the night.
And I had seen or heard y'all tell this story, and I had studied a little bit of blood spatter and stuff back in the day. So when you said it was fresh, I knew it was fresh. There's no question. But I did this for the audience. It was there. The blood was red. There were no flies, right?
Right.
Nope.
So
we guessed that had been put there just minutes prior to us getting there.
Just let me. There were plenty of bugs in the area because every time we cut our lights on, we inhaled about 20 pounds of them.
Yeah, we were swarmed by bugs every time.
So it wasn't like they weren't there. They just weren't on.
Was there any smell to predate
no
that you've seen that? Because I know usually when you come across a carcass, it's can be quite odoriferous.
Nope.
Yeah, no, there was no odor to it, no bugs on it, and there was still, like, when you touched it, you could still feel the it was soft. There was no lividity to it.
Wow.
And let me just answer Kaiju Ninja. Every time we go down Blunt Road, Joe Bald, or Combs Ferry, yes, we find dismembered deer everywhere.
Well, directly across the trail, about 10 yards away from where we found that, we found what we refer to as the that's in a different. That was in Joe Bald.
Oh, go ahead.
We found what we refer to as the Missouri tree trout. That same night there.
There it is.
You can look at this. That is not cut. See how jagged that is? That fish it's basically been twisted off and stuck. And then that's a sapling that it's in. And there's no way that a large animal climbed that and stuck that in there. That was wedged in the fork of a sapling about 10 yards from where the leg was. And once we passed the point where that's when the aggression went up like 100%.
Oh wow.
Huh.
Same thing. No flies.
No flies.
Wow. I wonder if it's a scent thing, like they know not to mess with it.
And it could be a storage thing too, because you don't want some of the small critters and coyotes coming along and cleaning up.
We thought about that and talked about that, but look at that. There's no meat left on that. That to me screams warning sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do not enter. No trespassing.
And the reason I brought up the blood thing, because I heard y'all tell the story and you knew it was fresh, but of course this is AI chat GPT, but how long does deer blood stay bright red? Fresh stage 0 to 10 minutes, color bright oxygenated red, of course. And it dries, the early drying stages are 10 to 30 minutes. It happens pretty quickly.
Well, if you look at that blood's still bright red.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why I asked, backstage, I'm like, y'all think it was a warning, but because that's what I felt when I first saw these pictures,
Kaiju, to answer your question, yes, we've been in several areas where people have gone missing.
I'm just going to show a few pictures here.
This was taken in an abandoned campground here in Missouri called Joe Bald. When my son and I found this, we also found the severed legs. That hide has not been cut off like you would skin a deer. That hide has been grabbed and peeled off the deer like a glove.
Right.
Wow.
And it's a younger buck. So that I asked that earlier. If you have the younger deer and you hang them up, you can do them almost like a rabbit, but it takes two people, two strong people.
There were no cut marks on that hide. The eyeballs are missing, and so was the tongue and soft palate.
Well, look.
Oh, interesting.
Check this out. What's missing on this?
Eyes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we noticed that too.
Yep.
A lot of nutrients in the eyes. If you can
exactly.
Well, they call them VA the grapes of the animal world.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Now
the Eskimos say that seal eyes taste like ice cream.
I
yeah.
bet we
Well,
do.
I've heard when people are shipwrecked and they're starving, that a lot of times some of this stuff will taste like chocolate to them for survival. Your body kicks in. Now with this picture here, what hunter will go and harvest a deer, spend all the time doing what it's supposed to do, and leave the trophy?
Exactly.
We also found all four of the legs. And if you bring up one of those pictures of the legs, look at that. That has not been cut off at the joint. Look at the snapped off bone. That is the hard way to break off a leg. There's another one. Bone's
There's the
broken.
bone. Yeah.
If I was going to take a leg off, I'd just put my knife in the joint, cut the tendons, cut the sinew, and just throw it away. I mean, and it comes off with a knife. You don't have to go to the effort of breaking that bone.
Look, that bone right there is some of the hardest material. I've tried to saw. If you don't have a good hacksaw, even if you do, you can ask my son if he's still in chat. We had a Sawzall a couple years ago. Thought it'd make it easier. That's some hard material right there. That's a twist break, right? Look at it splintered.
Yeah, it gets easier to cut as the bone dries out, but fresh bone like that is very hard to break. That one, again, you can see the sinew sticking out where it's been twisted off.
Okay, I see the bone in between the two rocks now. It's like pointing up towards the top of the screen.
Yes,
There's three little rocks together, almost in a little design.
I see it. Yep.
You said you found all four legs with that particular, I'm going to call it carcass. Were they? Yeah, what was left over? Yeah, how were they laid out around that?
The legs were just scattered randomly. They weren't laid together in a pile. They were just randomly around that head.
So.
Kaiju, no, we haven't found any gut piles, not to my knowledge. DA,
there was no guts with this. So if this had been a poacher and they'd been, for example, well, Roger, you can tell first thing you do is field dress a deer. You drop the gut pile.
Oh, yeah.
There was none of that. We've never found a gut pile in any of these, but we found numerous examples of deer being torn apart like this. In fact, I was taking Robby and my son Noah down to an area that's called Blunk Road. It borders on the James River here in Missouri, and it is in the middle of nowhere. In fact, the last mile or so, when you're going down to it, the road is so overgrown by the forest, it looks like you're driving through a tunnel. And we're going down there. It was late one night. I had my brights on. And as we're rounding the bend heading down toward the water, I start slowing down. Robby goes, "What?" I go, "What the hell's that in the middle of the road up there?" And so he leans forward and he's looking at it. He goes, "That looks like a deer head." And as we got down there, sure enough, there was a deer head setting in the middle of the road.
Wow.
Just the head.
Just the head. And you could tell it had been twisted off. It wasn't cut. It wasn't clean cut. Even the hide around it had been torn. I mean, there was no clean cuts. That wasn't done with an edged weapon. That had been torn free and left there in the middle of the road. And oddly enough, it also was missing the eyeballs and the tongue and soft palate.
To be clear, I have no doubt that what we're seeing here is carnage left over from some apex predator, be it Bigfoot, Dogman, or something else. We're not entirely sure. Bears don't do that, even if they had the strength to do it. Moose don't do that, obviously.
Don't have thumbs.
But I would have to ask, just to, I guess, more or less get the thought out of my head. Does this particular area have any not deer stories or sightings? Because I couldn't help but think of Native American lore that I've heard from where I'm at, where almost a shift shaping shape. I can't talk.
Shape-shifting.
Shape-shifting.
Thank you. I was dyslexic there for a minute. Good team effort. Thank you. Shape shifting and to where the idea is you're tearing off skins is usually how it's described when I hear it. So I don't think that's what this is. I'm just saying, do you guys have stories, anything like that in this area of not deer or shape shifting?
I've never heard of any not deer stories. There's a Wendigo sighting report from not far from here.
Yeah.
But the big one that's in that area, and is the reason I set a book at Blunk Road, is because that area has had, over the last 50 years, has had more than a dozen Ozarks Howler sightings.
Ooh.
No, thank you.
And how exactly do they describe the Ozark Howler? The only reason I ask is because being over here, I'm still slowly learning all that. It's the Ozark Howler and Momo, or is all of that one and the same, or is the Ozark Howler?
Momo is just another name for Bigfoot.
That's
the
what
way
I
they
thought.
described it. It was just another Bigfoot. Ozark's Howler, on the other hand, even Daniel Boone said that he'd tracked and killed one. Allegedly, he shot and killed one near Cuba, Missouri. Supposedly, he had it stuffed and mounted and put in his collection, and upon his death, it was donated to the Smithsonian. So,
like everything else.
But the Ozark Howler has been described as a dog, like a mastiff type dog, the size of a bear with horns growing out the back of its head.
Sounds like an eldritch horror.
Kind of, and it makes a deep baying scream that a lot of people have reported hearing echoing through the deep valleys and hollers of the Ozarks.
Thus the name Howler, for sure.
Exactly.
Well, that's good to know, because I've heard people say that the Ozark Howler is just another name for a type of Bigfoot, so it's good to know that there is actually a distinguishing difference.
In fact, the local Native American tribes like the Osage used to refer to the Ozarks Howler as the Hoo-Hoo. And there is a secret society dedicated to that. It's called the Concatenated Order of the Hoo-Hoo. And Teddy Roosevelt was one of its presidents.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's a
good old Teddy Roosevelt, man. Like, I
We firmly believe that Teddy knew about cryptids.
Oh, yeah, 110%.
Have you heard us talk about the Bauman incident?
Oh, yeah. I'm very familiar with the Bauman incident. It's one of my favorites.
We firmly believe that Bauman legitimately was Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had political aspirations he didn't want to tell anybody. And the reason we think that is when Teddy was in his younger life, when he attended, I believe it was Harvard, he was on the rowing team, or the sculling team. And he was the point man on the skull. And you want to know what the point man is called? You guessed it, a Bauman. That was his nickname in college.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I knew that.
But that's just all coincidence.
But I love
it.
Oh, yeah.
And, the fact that when Teddy became president, one of the first things he did was create the National Park Service. But details.
Oh, yeah. Now
I like where you think there, D. I like it.
Yeah, one of the first things he helped do was
that we can't do anything with that you could have.
And all these people that happen
acres.
to go missing in all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, 88.5 million acres. But we did a deep dive on our show one night talking about government land aside from national parks. But if you take in national parks, state parks, wildlife management areas, wildlife preservation areas, Bureau of Land Management areas, and reservation land areas that we're not allowed to have full access to, if you count all that up, that's over 1 billion, yes, billion with a B, billion square acres, and just in the lower 48.
Yep. And I had somebody ask me that was interviewing me about some of these states making it legal or illegal to hunt Bigfoot, whatever, and they have these rules. I kind of think a lot of times they already know they're there, but if something happens, they have a rule to go by, right? They can say, okay, you were doing something illegal, it's your fault, whatever. Or it may be some of these rules and laws may be to protect the people from getting out and getting hurt also. So, with Teddy and all of his explorations, and you talking about rabbit holes, that's one I wasn't expecting. And
you gotta love containment theory.
Right. And like Robby said, it's almost like nothing to see here because it's just all coincidence. When you start connecting those dots, you don't have to draw very long.
Watch this hand. Don't worry about this hand over here.
Right.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly.
And
my favorite Smithsonian joke, and I probably just gave the punchline away, but if you guys remember the Storm Area 51 from a few years ago, my favorite joke was Storm Area 51, proudly funded by the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Evidence gathering or evidence confiscation.
A lot of states have passed protective ordinances, but except for, go with the state of Oklahoma, who went the other direction.
Yeah.
The state of Oklahoma offers a $3 million bounty on one brought in alive.
Right. And that's the key, though. Brought in alive. Yeah, I'd like to see the fine print on killing one. And man, I tell you what,
I wouldn't want to try to bring one in alive. I mean,
No.
what if you get what if you get a trank dart dosage wrong and it wakes up while you're trying to shackle it?
Hey, I watched King Kong. I know how that goes
you
down.
Wouldn't make it out wherever you went to drop. Like, okay, somebody shoots one, whatever, detains one, brings it in. You really think you're leaving that into, like, you really think you get to walk away from that? No. You will never see the light of day again. Like,
well, even if you manage to bring one down, you're assuming it was alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things we've talked about on our show as well. The talk about the missing 411, specifically the missing 411, the hunters, where experienced armed hunters who had hunted in the same area for years vanished without a trace. But I've talked to dozens of hunters over the years that said, I had this thing in my sights and I could have shot it, but I didn't because I wasn't convinced it wasn't a guy in a suit or it wasn't human. That's why I didn't take the shot.
The eyes. I think people see the face and the eyes, and you can't.
And I think the missing 411 hunters took the shot.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's possible. And so when we try to explore all this, what you just said is very, very true. And what I try to put myself in the place of that hunter. And you also hear them, they couldn't make the shot. And some of them are trained former military, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just feels wrong. It feels wrong to them because the emotion in the face, we've all heard the story of the turning slightly and looking up like it knows what's about to happen. When you can shoot a fish because it's not winking at you and smiling and cutting up and telling you jokes, right? But if you look at something in the face that's got some sort of intelligence and some emotion, then as humans, that's going to feel very wrong. And that not talked about enough, but that's what I see. And that's what I think about when I hear those stories. It's not that now, if it attacks, it's coming up the tree or whatever, those people are going to instinctively from their training, hunters that's been doing it for years and have had to take care of business, you're going to pull the trigger. But because of the emotion and the intelligence, they can't do it. So that I think to me, that's a really huge point that we don't talk about.
I talked to a hunter down from near Eminence, Missouri. He said he was hunting near the Current River, and he was in a deer stand, and he saw a flash of brown by the water, down by the river, and he thought it was a deer, so he put his scope on it. He said I was probably 300 yards away, camouflaged in a tree stand. He said, I put this thing in my sights, and he said it looked like a big guy covered in fur, kneeling down at the water, taking handfuls of water. And he says, and it was the weirdest thing. He said, because I had the scope on it, and it had its head and profile to me, and all of a sudden it goes and looked right at me. He said, I knew it was looking directly at me, and there was no way it could have seen me from that far away. And he said, at that point, I just lowered the rifle, and he said there was no way I was taking the shot because it understood I was there.
Yeah. That as a kid, I tell my story all the time, and I'm looking at this thing. It's looking up the hill. I don't know if it knows I'm there or not, and I can't tell you which way the wind was blowing back then. But all of a sudden, it does this turn and looks right at me, and I'm like, uh-oh, I wasn't moving. You know what I mean? I wasn't making noise. I don't know whether you might have smelled me or whatever, but to me, it looked like almost like I know you're there. Of course, I didn't have a gun on it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I feel like they're in tune to something. And my buddy Don Odom's former game warden, he said everything's all about frequencies and energy. So you know,
Well, how many times have you been sitting in a room and just realized somebody was looking at you?
I know you look right at them,
And
or
turn
if you.
like, oh,
Or if you're zoned out looking at somebody, you know, sometimes you'll zone out and you're looking in a direction and they'll look right at you like, what are you doing? I know, y'all,
Yeah.
it's weird. Now, you know, talking to some of the researchers, I started looking at things differently. 2 years ago, if you'd have shown pictures, you and Robby would have talked about this deer hide. I never would have even thought to ask the question, do you think it was you know, a warning sign? But the more
well,
we learn.
whenever we find stuff like that, we try to debunk it first.
Exactly.
Yeah. First thing we ask, mountain lion. Mountain lions climb trees and take parts of a deer up. Could this have been a mountain lion? And we ruled that out because one, it was woven around the branches, and two, the tree just was not big enough to support it. Maybe a bobcat, but not a mountain lion. But those smaller branches were only like the diameter of a dime or a quarter. They were not big. So even a 40, 50-pound mountain bobcat probably would have snapped off them branches.
Right.
And they were twisted among some very closely together put branches. So, you know, we ruled out bobcat. Bears don't do that. They can't. Coyotes and wolves don't do that. And it didn't take us very long of talking about it to realize it had to have been something that had hands.
And even to the point where, you know, you're looking at the bone and it's a spiral type fracture, knowing how hard those bones are. Okay, let's say a car hit it, broke ribs and all that stuff. It didn't twist the legs off at right at the joint. You know what I mean? So,
Or like, and I don't recall if you said it, DA, or if you said Robby, or whoever said it. It looks like it was that one leg was being gnawed on. You could see it just.
Yeah.
Yep.
well, I know I've seen some weird stuff, and like y'all, you know, people will call us, hey, can you come look at this? Well, that's the first thing I do is see, because I don't want to be the one that got punked, right? I'm looking at like, okay, how could you have faked this first, then work your way from there. I don't look at it and like, oh my God, I think that might be a Bigfoot. It's you start over here and work your way back, and that's why I like people who have experience in investigating, because like I said earlier, if you show up with idea, like Robby got far enough away where he didn't want to hear them putting ideas in his head. You know, he didn't want to be influenced by that. That shows me, you know, the type of people y'all are. And if you come to me, and I've heard y'all say this a bunch, I don't know what that was or whatever, but this is what we think it was. And that's, unless you see it happen. Now, if you've got the Bigfoot prints right beside it, you know, and you collect some hair or whatever. Yeah. But some of us are, you know, we all know some of the same researchers that they're so scared to be wrong. They can be 99.9% sure what it is, and they still won't come out and say it, you know, so.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've met a few folks like that, you know, just, nope. It's what I said. And we've talked to some other researchers, like when we talk about the tongue pops, nope, it's all wood. You're making that up.
See,
how do you know?
Denial is one hell of a drug. I think a lot of people really do not understand how powerful the mind is, and are built in self-preservation in a sense. So it's like to acknowledge something otherworldly or unknown, paranormal, supernatural, whatever, and it goes against everything you've ever been taught, everything you've ever believed. I personally believe that, because like I make no qualms. Like I'm a Christian. I'm a believer in Christ. I gave my life to Christ when I was 23 years old. I believe that those things are not separate. I have no problem reconciling my faith with the strange and unusual. But for a lot of people, whether they had a religious background or not, a lot of people don't, whatever. But like you see something and your mind goes to monsters, supernatural, whatever. You don't know how to make sense of that. So your mind just shuts down. No, it was a bear. No, it was a this. It was a that. It's amazing what your mind will do to save itself.
Mhm.
Well, there's an old phrase that they used to, and it was about technology though, but it still applies. Any technology sufficiently advanced is thought to be magic by those who don't understand it. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to Bigfoot. Just because we can't explain what they did, they immediately jump to like it's aliens, it's things like that. But when we talk, well, even Doug Highcheck from Monster
Shout out
Quest.
to Doug. Hey,
yeah,
Doug.
love Doug. Great dude. Doug and I have talked for hours about this. Doug and plenty of other researchers that I've talked to have talked about the clear hair shafts that are found in Bigfoot hair samples. Now, the most recent generation of ghillie suits that the military is making include pieces of fiber optic. Why? Because it's a clear hair shaft and it will pick up and redirect the color of light around it. So if they're laying among green plants, it looks green. If they're laying among brown stuff, it looks brown. And I think that's the same thing with Bigfoot hair. I think it picks up and redirects the color of the light around it. Great, perfect example of that is the Freeman footage. When Freeman is tracking that large black Bigfoot, he's filming it. It's walking and then it stops in front of this pine tree and it just disappears. It's gone. Just like it up in smoke, gone. And when he keeps coming and is still filming, then it realizes it didn't fool him. It starts walking again, and there it is. Robbie and I have said this many times. I think it is just natural adaptive camouflage. I don't think it's anything with, like to do with aliens or cloaking or anything like that. I could be wrong, but coming from a law enforcement background, I look for hard evidence and real world connotations where I can start explaining these theories. So we think that because of those clear hair shafts, it has a limited blending ability. There are other animals that have clear hair shafts. Polar bears have clear hair shafts. If you look at a polar bear's skin, it ain't white; it's black or dark gray. The hair is clear because it absorbs the light and redirects the color of the light around it. That's why if you see a polar bear in a zoo, a lot of times its fur looks yellow. It's not because it changed color; it's because it's not among snow and ice.
Exactly.
But and that's the kind of things that we look for. We look for scientific explanations for these. And like Robbie said earlier, sometimes you don't need to look farther beyond the natural world around you to find explanations for some of these things. Now, I'm not going to say that people think of what they call the woo. I'm not going to say they're wrong, and I'm not going to discredit their sightings. They saw what they saw. I wasn't there. But what I will say is in 40 plus years of going into the backwoods of Missouri looking for these things, I have yet to see anything that would lead me to think that they can cloak or teleport or dimensional travel or any of that. And we can even explain why the tracks disappear in the middle of a field. Robbie, one thing Robbie didn't tell about himself, Robbie does not like to toot his own horn, so I'm going to toot the horn for him. Robbie's a man tracker. Robbie's a man tracker. He's been sent to the schools by his department to track fugitives. That's what he does. And when Robbie explains about these tracks, to me, it makes a hell of a lot more sense than, I don't know where the track went, so he must have went into another dimension. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about those tracks?
Yeah. It's the SBA.
No, I'm actually extremely curious about this. This is really good. I love being
now
able
we're getting to the good.
To have scientific explanations for stuff that people would consider paranormal, but is actually just normal that we don't understand yet. So
yeah, I thought I was good at tracking deer and stuff, and in 5 minutes in the woods with Robbie, I was already learning crap I never knew.
I ain't that good. He always says this, but I'm not. Anyway, tracking and track morphology and things like that. It doesn't change when you're tracking a person or you're tracking a deer. Once you know what you're looking for, that's what you're looking for. Be it a person, be it a deer, be it a Bigfoot, be it a dog, whatever you're looking for, you got to identify your tracks and the spoor that it leaves before you can track anything. And so when I was sent to this class, DA and I were talking about it, and he was like, dude, he said, so, he talking about tooting my horn. It was actually his idea, but he said, this is probably about the same. He said, we could work this into what we do. I didn't think about it. So that's where we came up with the idea. It's the same premise, just knowing what you're looking for. And that's kind of how I've built like the conference we're going to next week. I'm teaching a couple of tracking classes. DA usually helps me with them. It's the same principle that I learned for man tracking is for tracking these things. I mean, you identify the track, just like if somebody broke into a house and went out and I find the boot print. Okay, it's a lug pattern, 9.5 inches long. It's got one of the lugs is cut. That's what I'm looking at, the distinctive features of that track. Same thing with a Bigfoot. You go in, you identify the track, you look, because a scar is going to show up. If they've got a scar on their foot, that'll show up in the track. The way the pressure relief ridges and pitch and sway, and just the way if it drags a foot because of an injury or something like that, all that stuff is going to show up. It's just like a fingerprint. It's all going to show up. So once you've identified what you're going after, it's just a matter of finding it and looking for things like what we call fresh meat, a break in a tree. You see a limb that's broke. There's a way to go see. I don't know how long that's been. Okay. Back up closer to where the tree or the limb is still fresh or still attached rather. You break it there and compare the colors. If it's same color, it's a fresh break. If this one's a lot drier and more brown than it is a fresh looking color, then okay, it's probably been done 30 minutes or more. It's just knowing what to look for. And once you know what to look for, when I graduated from that class, my instructor shook my hand and said, "Congratulations, we'll never look at the ground the same way again." He's right.
Tell them about the backtracking.
Okay, the thing with backtracking, and a lot of people don't understand that, but there are grizzly bears will backtrack, rabbits will backtrack, humans are taught to backtrack.
Our special forces are taught to walk backwards in their own tracks.
So the same principle we talked about earlier. If it's already in nature, already something that just like the adaptive camouflage, just like the echolocation we talked about earlier, it's already something that's established by known creatures that we know in the world. How can we say this thing can't do it or can't learn to do it? If they're as smart as we think they are, and my line with this is, if you want to get the hairless monkey with the boomstick off your back and you're smart enough to know how to do that, why wouldn't you do it? You walk 30 yards into a field and then backtrack, jump up on a big rock, up into the trees you go, and 30 yards off to the right side of the path, and then you drop down and go and sit back and watch the idiot walk around in the field going.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that hard. It's just knowing what it looks like when there's something called dispersion.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary point of impact, if you're walking forward, what's the primary point of impact on your foot?
Usually the heel, right?
Right.
I'd say,
if you're walking forward, your heel's going to strike first. That's going to be your primary point of impact. So my heel strikes and I go down. Things are going to be dirt, grass, sticks, whatever is going to be, adhere to the bottom of my foot for a split second or longer, or whatever. So that dispersion, when you pick your foot up and go, which way is that dispersion going to go?
Forward.
It's going to go forward part of the track. So everything you pull out of that track you just left is going to follow you that way. So think about it. If I'm backtracking, what's your primary point of impact going to be?
The other way.
It's going to be your toe. Your toes going to hit first, because you're not going to walk backwards and put your heel down first and then put your toes down, because you're not going to go anywhere.
So you can't.
You wouldn't move. You would stand still and just put your heel and your foot in the front of your foot down, and you wouldn't move anywhere. So to walk backwards is the same way. You're going to put your toe down first, and then your heel's going to strike, and you're going to pick your toe up, and you're going to bring it back. So which way is that disbursement going to go? It's going to go whichever way your body's moving.
Mm-hmm.
So getting down and looking at the tracks and figuring out which way the disbursement is going in and out of the track, that's a way to tell things have backtracked.
And in nature, if a deer's injured and it's taking its last few breaths, a lot of times it will jump into cover to hide itself, right? So we've got a lot of questions in here. Robby's talking about that. It doesn't make the other not possible, because as humans, with us trying to sneak through the woods, we'll use the exposed rock. We'll step in between two sticks. We'll use that also. Now, going back, y'all have all heard Greg House's story. He took me to the location where this thing jumped off of one leg and landed in the middle of the road, y'all. Being there and seeing, I walked down to where it was standing, and the road was like level with my head, or close. For this thing to jump as big as it was off of one leg up and over and land in the road. Think about if it was on 2 feet, which it's probably, you could probably tell it would bring the other foot up and then it would launch, right? So there you go again. The launch would push material back or whatever. So you can kind of tell that also if it's the right material. There's
Roger,
a lot.
when you say 1 foot, do you mean that it only had like one leg, or
No,
it just
it
had
was-
it up flamingo style?
It turned, and when it decided to run, it launched off of one leg up and out into the middle of the road. Now, I couldn't even step up the hill and cover half the distance. So this thing is heavy and as big as it was. So there you go. And there's another thing, Robby. I had a theory, just listening to people talking about them dropping to all fours, right? And I'm thinking, well, if they have a flexible foot and they dropped all fours, that heel is not going to be touching the ground.
Probably not.
And so I asked the guy, he was doing a show out west, and he was a tracker, and he was a Bigfoot guy, had been doing it for decades. And he said he spooked one up. It was laying under a ledge. He didn't know it was there. He come around the corner, the overhang of rocks. It got on all fours. He said it on 2 legs first, dropped down to all fours, and then took off, exploded. I said, did you find footprints? He said, yes. The material was so hard that it was, he wasn't leaving any tracks, but this thing was so heavy that it did.
Oh, wow.
And when he said it dropped down to all fours, I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask this guy. I said, what did those tracks look like? He said it was a half a foot, because when it dropped down, the heel came up. And I'm like,
Wow.
Yeah, the heel hinges up.
yes.
And the front looks like knuckle tracks, like a gorilla.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's where a lot of the partial tracks that people find come from.
Mm-hmm.
In situations
Yeah.
like that.
That would make a lot of sense.
And it just comes from like experience, woods experience. But you get back to what I was saying earlier. If DA sees 100 deer a day in this field, then he goes out there and he sees deer tracks. He says, that's a deer. Robby sees 3 Bigfoot in the field at separate times in 10 years. Then he finds a track, and a lot of people are scared to say it's a Bigfoot track. You know what I mean? I'm like, if you've seen the thing there and you find tracks, and I know they're trying to be careful, but this type of discussion is what I like, because it doesn't mean what we say is true, but the fact that we're thinking shows you that we've seen real crap. You know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
I couldn't have told you how a Bigfoot walked up a hill, stepping over grass like a walking horse, unless I saw it. I'm not, I mean, who's going to think of that? I wasn't a kid that stayed inside. I had walked up that hill several times. If I hadn't have walked up that hill and knew how hard it was, then that wouldn't have been as impressive to me. Right. So I love talking about this is what I like. So I appreciate you sharing that. And it's the same thing with other evidence. When I saw the white wolf, Robby, when I left that night and we saw it, I was looking at the angle, and I focused on the trees that it went between, because I was going to go back later and see what the leaves look like. We came back the next day. I found the spot. I went up there. I saw where it wheeled around, and I saw the leaves disturbed at the same angle that thing ran. Now, what does that mean? It don't mean anything. It just confirmed to me that it was a physical being, and I saw something. So because this does mess with you, like you're looking at those those eyes up there, and the history of the place.
Well,
I mean, everybody knows the history, and it scares the crap out of you.
We got a perfect story and example for that from Blanc Road, don't we, DA? About we all saw something. We were all sure that we saw it. Then once we got back, we all kind of started, well, are we really sure? So I'll let you tell this one, DA.
Well, there's an area that I like to go to. It's called, I mentioned it before, Blanc Road. We found numerous destroyed deer down there. Well, last January, Doc and Robby were both here in town we were here a little over a week, and we went to a lot of places that I'd been wanting to take them, Blanc Road being one of them. And when we got down to Blanc Road, that's James River. It flows just about a mile from where we were at, flows into Table Rock Lake. And when we pulled down there, it was just absolutely dead quiet, dead still. And we started noticing something in the water. And at first I didn't pay too much attention to it because it's a river in Missouri. There's going to be shit in the water. Be it logs, rocks, whatever. But the river was up quite a bit. So we get to looking at it, and I'm like, hey, hang on a second. I think that damn thing's coming toward us. So we lit it up, and it was from here up of what I firmly believe was a Bigfoot coming right at us against the current.
Oh, wow.
And Doc, at that point, Doc was, if you'd have shoved a diamond up Doc's ass, he'd have gave you back a diamond. I mean, if you shoved a lump of coal up his butt, he'd have gave you back a diamond. But with that point, everybody's kind of like, what the hell is that? And and it was out pretty far from the shore. That's a really wide area of river, especially since it was up. So since it was coming toward us, we could see the eye shine. When we first put the light on it, it turned. I mean, we could see it turn and get the eye shine. So we decided it's coming at us. We probably ought to get out here. So we jumped in the truck, went up to the road about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and Doc's like,
could you hear anything, DA?
Just no. It
The current of the river.
It was, I heard the river. And Doc's like, did we really just see what we saw?
So no splashing sounds or anything that indicates. So it's
No,
quiet even in water.
Yeah, it was definitely walking against the current, but it wasn't making a lot of splashing noises.
Wow.
So we drove back down there, and this time it is, like I said, it's a pretty wide river. When we drive back down there and light that area up again, it is much closer to the shore. It is almost on our side of the river at this point, and the current was moving pretty fast. So Robby was like heading for it. Doc's like, get your ass in the truck, get your ass in the truck. So we've got to get Robby corralled, get him back in the truck, and we got out of the area because it was about to come out of the water.
We were on a collision course. It was coming this way, and I was coming that way. We were about to meet in the middle.
We jumped in the truck and headed back out, and so we got to talking. And Doc's like, "Was there any chance that could be a log in the water?" I'm like, "Well, if it's a log, it's coming against current." He goes, "What about a rock?" So rocks don't tend to move against current. And he's like, "Well, how do we know for sure?" So I've got a buddy that lives down there, not far from that road, and I had him go out a couple days later and take pictures of that spot, and sure enough, wasn't a damn thing in the water.
That's not terrifying at all.
Yeah, I agree. That's the fact that it wasn't making any sound in the water is
it was coming right for us.
Wow. That's funny because it's great when you have multiple witnesses seeing the same thing.
Well, all four of us saw it. My son Noah was with us too.
And it's human nature to, when you're talking about it, you're trying to prove it away, right? And you're looking at everything that could have been. If it had been a stationary log hung in the water and the current was going, you would have heard the water. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. I mean, there's, not all the time, but it's probably going to make some noise. You know what I'm saying? So, wow, that's crazy.
The river was really up, and on a good day, the water where it was at was probably 6 to 7 feet. So I'm estimating that river was where it was at was probably 8 to 9 feet deep.
So you're saying it wasn't swimming; it was kind of walking.
It was walking on the bottom, directly against the current.
And they're dense enough too. They would have
sticking out of the water. Yeah, what's sticking out of the water didn't change. We could see it like bobbing up and down as it's taking steps, but it didn't change. It wasn't like it was moving position. It was making a bead right toward us in the water.
Wow. What's the scariest thing? I know I hate to ask this, but what's the time that either of you are like, this is probably enough of this. Why am I doing this?
Funny enough, we were asked that question the other day too.
Robby, you go ahead.
Well, it hadn't changed. That night at Combs Ferry was that was
We went in by boat to Combs Ferry, and we only had a bass boat available to us. So he was ferrying us in small groups. And we all had radios, and the guy on the boat had a radio. He was going to drop us all off on the shore. Robby, Noah, and I were the first group in, and we discovered the three of us going in almost swamped the boat. We're like, okay, we got to limit this to 2 people from here on out because it's too much for the boat. So we get on the shore, and Richard goes back across the lake and down about a mile to go get the next group. As soon as we hit the ground, we start hearing activity. We can hear things moving. We hear like small rocks getting thrown at us. So we're all just sitting there. Nobody's drawing a weapon. We've got our headlamps on. We're looking around, but it's all around us, except for right where we were at by the water. Mm-hmm. And the more the activity kept being active, it kept kind of moving around us. My son Noah got out the parabolic mic, and he was listening. He said he could hear like chuffing sounds and things moving in the trees. Well, that goes on for a few minutes, and here comes the boat. And as soon as the boat comes up with the drop 2 more off, it backed off. They backed off a little ways. They were still there, but they were farther away. So we sat there for a little bit longer while the boat went back for the third group. So there were 7 of us that went. There was me, Robby, Noah, Steve, Lieutenant Jenkins, Lieutenant Estrella, both lieutenants from my old department.
Whole
and
squad.
Wyatt
Wow.
Yeah, they took 7 of us, and of that 7, 5 were either current or retired law enforcement. 4 of us were ex-military, with Lieutenant Estrella having multiple deployments to the Middle East. So it's not like we were taking a group of people who were inexperienced in tight situations. Mm-hmm. We took Steve because he was a nurse. He was the team medic. We did a full safety briefing, made sure everybody's got one of the cute. Made sure everybody had a trauma kit because we always go in. Doc couldn't be with us that trip. We really missed him being there, but Doc was supposed to be there, but at the last minute he couldn't make it. But so the 7 of us, once we hit the ground, we start moving. And Combs Ferry is a peninsula. It sticks way out into the lake. So from where we put in, the plan was to go out to the very tip of the peninsula, navigate all the way around the peninsula, then come back up the other side and be picked up at the same point we put in. What we didn't realize is when Steve jumped off the boat, he actually broke 2 of the bones in his lower leg.
He didn't realize
literally.
Yeah, he didn't realize that they were stress fractures. What he didn't realize was that they were broken. He just thought he'd like twisted his knee. So he doesn't say anything. So we're all moving in. We're keeping, we're all getting groups. We found some tracks. We documented all those. We found some of those old concrete picnic tables, like for the campsite. Over in Joe Bald, those campsites look like you could just, go in there with some chainsaws and stuff, clear the area out, and go back to camping. Most of those campsites are still in good shape. Combs Ferry looks like a nuclear bomb went off in it. In fact, there's no campsite in there that's even left that's not in pieces. And the Army Corps of Engineers, they went so far, when they shut it down, they bulldozed off the road into it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's why we had to go in by boat. And they lock it up. They've got a lockable steel gate across even the road to get down to where they bulldozed it off. So this is all out on a
lot
peninsula.
of time, energy.
They went to
money,
a lot of effort to keep people out of there.
That's very telling.
So,
exactly, yeah. Something's not interesting there. Why they would want to do that?
we get down to the tip of the peninsula, and we're just starting back up the other side. And Wyatt and Robby found the entire top of one of those picnic tables, maybe 7-8 feet long by about 6 feet wide, about that thick, about 6-8 inches thick. It probably weighed north of a ton. It had been ripped off one of those campsites and thrown into the middle of the path we were on. Obviously it wasn't recently, but there were no tool marks on any of this either. It's not like somebody went in there with a jackhammer
Are those attached to like rebar?
Yes.
Yep.
The rebar is still sticking out of it.
Holy crap.
So we
Wyatt's
found that.
actually got a picture of me standing on it. It makes me look small.
I've got
Wow.
the pictures. Get the pictures of that too. I should have sent that one to you.
How
But
tall are
was
you for reference?
I'm about between 5'9" and 5'10.5", depending on what
On a good day.
what convenience store I'm coming out of.
which
What-
boots he's
what-
wearing?
What hats you got on? Yeah.
Yeah, what
It
hat I
wasn't
got
too
on,
much.
which boots.
It wasn't too much farther up the trail where we found the piece of the deer and the Missouri tree trout. And at that point, Steve was, if as to quote Robby, if Steve could have sprouted wings and flown back to the car, he would have. Steve he's like, okay, I've seen it, I've experienced it, I believe it, I'm going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he cussed me for all I was worth for being the one that found the deer hiding the tree.
We hadn't made it more than 20 yards past those when things started getting really aggressive. We're getting bigger rocks thrown at us. We're hearing grunts. We're seeing dark shapes moving between the trees, and this whole area is extremely overgrown. And Noah comes up and he's like, Dad, you got to hear this. He had headphones plugged into that parabolic. So I took one of the headphones and he's like aiming it, and he described it perfectly. He said that it sounded like a language, but it sounded like gibberish. And I've heard the samurai chatter, and this didn't sound like it. It sounded like gibberish, but you could hear multiple things talking in that gibberish. And at the time, we didn't have the ability to record that parabolic. We do now, and we're planning another overnight outing. But after that, they're starting to get aggressive. And that was about the point where Steve's like, hey, guys, my leg is really starting to hurt. Again, he didn't know it was broken, found out later. But he's like, my leg is killing me. So we put Steve toward the middle, and I called Lieutenant Estrella over. And I'm like, hey, LT, can you do me a favor? He's like, yeah. I said, pull up the satellite map of this area, and we got to find an extraction point, get Steve out of here. He's hurt. So we start looking at the satellite view of the area, and we found the remnants of the old boat ramp where they used to launch boats from the campground. And I said, is that what that looks like to me? Is that a boat ramp? He zooms in on it. He goes, yeah, it looks like busted up concrete, but that's part of an old boat ramp. So I get on the radio. I'm like, hey, Richard, do you know where the boat ramp is? He goes, yeah, it's all the way around the other side of the peninsula. It's going to take me a little while, because he was fishing off the spot where we put in. So he said, you're going to give me a few minutes. I've got to come around all the way around the peninsula, and I'll meet you there. I said, well, whatever you do, these things are starting to get kind of aggressive. Don't put to shore until you see us down there. He's like, got it. So Richard comes around the point, and we had made our way, had to cover some more broken boulders in the trail and piles of crap, and had to pick our way through this area because it was very, very. It wasn't a super dangerous hike, but there were plenty of obstacles. So we helped Steve over that, and we finally make it down to the old parking area where what's left of that boat ramp is. And so I kept my flashlight and I signal Richard, and he comes in. First group we put on was Steve and Lieutenant Jenkins, who was in the chat tonight, sending them out because Steve's hurt. And as soon as the boat, but this point now, it's like 45 minutes for the boat to go and come back, because it is much farther away from where we put in. So first group of 2 goes out. Now that there's 5 of us on the ground, it was my son Noah, myself, Robby, Estrella, and Wyatt. Now that there's 5 of us, they've moved in. We can hear them throwing rocks. We can hear them grunting. We're starting to get nervous. We sit there for what felt like eternity before the boat comes back. So I send Estrella and Wyatt out, and boat takes off with the other 2, and they start moving in some more. And at this point, I look over at Robby and Noah. I'm like, okay, this was my harebrained idea, and I've always said I'm going to be the first set of boots on the ground. I'll be the last set to leave. I said, I want you 2 on the next boat. I'm staying.
You're going down with the ship, Captain.
Robby's like, the hell you are. Your wife will kill me if you think I'm leaving you here. But the thought never entered our brain of just sticking Noah on the boat and him and I leaving together. We didn't think of that. But we weren't exactly,
We were too busy arguing with who was going to be the last one there.
Who was going to stay by themselves. But that boat leaves with the Wyatt and Estrella on it, and they move in. Those things move in closer. So by the time the boat got back, we were knee deep in the water with our guns out.
Wow.
And they were all around us. So the boat pulls in, and Robby looks over at Richard and goes, can you risk taking all of us at the same time? We cannot afford to leave one person. Richard's like, we're going to have to go slow. We'll have to go real slow. It's going to take us forever to get back. But yeah, we'll get everybody on board. So all 3 of us get on board, and Richard backed slowly out into the channel, and the water off of this peninsula is well over 200 feet deep. There's a deep lake. We were actually down close to the dam, so the water's deep. Well, we back out into that channel, and Richard has one of those, like I think 1.5 million candle power spotlights wired up in the boat, and he flicks that thing on and lights up where we had just been standing, and there was like a light fog on the lake, and he lights up that area we'd just been standing, and there was probably more than a dozen sets of eye shine right where we had just been. They were all brought in right on the area, and I'm snapping pictures, and because of that that light fog, none of the pictures turned out. A few of them you can kind of see the eyes, but yeah, we couldn't get any good pictures of that. But yeah, I think that was the most terrifying experience I've ever had, because I'm fairly certain if we'd left one person behind, they wouldn't have been there when we got back.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Because it's what's terrifying about that as well. Of course, obviously I wasn't there for that, but just the thought that, they were messing with you in a sense.
Yeah.
It seems like, because let's be real, if they wanted to get you while the three of you were sitting there waiting for the boat to come back, they could have if they wanted to.
Almost
I think
like
if we'd have left one person, they'd have come back and found an empty gun and a pile of brass.
Probably.
Yep.
Wow. Well, so obviously there was fear, but do you feel like your adrenaline, your training, your just wanting to quote unquote survive and get out of there took over? Do you remember feeling anything? How do I say this? Because
Well, most of the time we don't draw our weapon, not unless we have to.
Yes.
There's only been a few times we've actually cleared leather, and that was one of them. But
really?
The fact that we were standing in the water
that's what I was trying.
And that's why we only take guys with some sort of training, like either be it military or law enforcement training, or somebody that's spent a great time in the woods. People that aren't going to panic easily, because the last thing we wanted when they were that close was for someone to open fire, because I think it would have been all hell would have broke loose.
Well, it sounded like you had an amazing team, honestly. Like that, just everyone seemed pretty solid and reliable, and everyone kind of played their part well. I guess to land the plane on my question is there's different types of fear. And when we're in those high fear situations, again, you have that typically adrenaline rush. In that moment, could you say that you were truly afraid for your life, or was it just, hey, we got to get out of here? Like,
I felt like we were being threatened. Like if we didn't leave, they were going to make us leave, or we weren't going to be there. But one thing kept ringing through my mind over and over. As we were packing for that expedition, getting ready to leave the house, my wife looked at me and Robby and she goes, "I don't care what happens to you two idiots. You bring my baby home." My youngest son was going with us.
That is such a mom thing to say. Shout out to all the moms out there.
and you put yourself in their situation. They've just seen this massive piece of concrete ripped off and thrown. So, oh God, I don't even think about it. That gave me chills. Yeah. When you said y'all were standing in the water,
dreams about it for weeks.
Yeah,
I can imagine so.
Wow. Well, man, I appreciate y'all sharing. We're up on 2 hours and 17 minutes.
Holy moly!
And yeah, I know it's like time flies. I know a lot of times y'all probably used to longer shows, but
we usually go about 2 hours.
Yeah, and Amanda lives in the other time zone. It's later there, so
Robby does too. He's on the East Coast.
Yeah, so
East Coast.
Y'all, I appreciate y'all coming on. I'm sorry it took so long, but anytime you want to come back, we may have a different panel or whatever. And y'all are some of my favorites because of all the experiences and the training that y'all have had, and you're funny, good guys too. So you fit right in. But we appreciate it. Are there any questions from you gals?
Oh, I could probably think of a lot, but yeah, it's we might have to make a part 2 to come back, because I know you boys have more stories to share about stuff out there.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely part 2. I do have one and I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm the annoying one in the group. I just the way my brain works. You guys have been so gracious, and I appreciate it. My one quick last question from this last story is: from that encounter, what was the span of time before you went back out in the field again?
The next weekend.
What's that?
Next week.
Oh no, it was the next night. That's right.
Yeah.
We after we got back, we went out. Me and Robbie and Noah went out the next night. So, yeah, we're right back out.
Yeah, because that was only like my
tip my imaginary hat to you.
Yeah.
That was only like the second night I was there.
Yeah,
So
after that
I
we
was
went
there
to
for the
Blunk
entire
Road,
week.
and went to Moon Valley, and went up to Smiddle Cave, and yeah, you guys got to hear the story of Smiddle Cave. That one's a bit long in the telling, but worth every minute of it.
As soon as we wrap this episode, we'll have to just get you guys back on the schedule. This demands a part 2.
Well,
I agree.
You got to send them the howl from up here around my house so they can hear the howl.
Near Robbie's house, maybe 10 miles from where he's sitting right at the moment, somebody in Pickens County, South Carolina, caught what sounds like a Dogman howl on a Ring doorbell camera.
Oh,
and whenever we've played it on our show, people have said their pets left the room, got the hell out of there.
That my cats do that all the time whenever I'm watching stuff and it has howls, like true, Sasquatch howls,
yeah,
or
samurai chatter or whatever it is.
Yeah, they could care less about wolves and other nature documentaries and stuff like that we put on, but if it has anything to do with that and they let out like the Ohio howl type of howl, they react instantly. So it's really interesting to watch. So yeah, I would love to hear that audio.
The best way I've described it sounds just like not just like, but it sounds a lot like the howl from American Werewolf in London.
Classic, one of my favorites.
Only amplified.
Wow.
And we've also recently come into possession of a video we don't have permission to share yet.
I've got a few myself, so I understand.
All I will say about this video, because Robbie and I have both seen it, and Doc has seen it. The only thing I will tell you about this video until we have a chance to go public with it is too graphic for YouTube.
Wow.
All right.
Well, on that note.
On that note, so Robbie and DA, I'm going to play this, and they're going to know this person very well. And this was cool of her to do. I'm going to play this right quick, right before we end it. Check this out.
Hey, I'm Neoma Fenn, and I'm listening to Squatchin Holler. And if you're hearing me say this, you are too, which means you have excellent taste. Cheers.
Love this.
Oh, I love her.
Too.
That's awesome.
I love that.
She was one of our co-hosts before she had to step down because she had so much going on. But yeah, she was a co-host on our show for a long time.
She was on the show last night, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Bigfoot conference in Ohio next weekend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Robbie and I are going to be guests there. Robbie's teaching a tracking class, and I'll be helping him out with that. Russell Accord will be there. Robbie's also doing something. The promoter of the show, Susan, asked Robbie to do this. That I don't know that it's been done before. We're teaching Robbie's teaching, and I'm going to do my best to be, less of a hindrance and hopefully helpful, but we're teaching a nighttime tracking class, which is going to involve a lot more senses than just listening, than just using your eyes. The convention is going to be awesome. It's called Spirit of the Forest Bigfoot Festival in Ohio. It'll be the 24th and 25th of this month, and it's going to be a heck of a good time. If you guys are going to be anywhere near the area, we'd love to see you.
I wish I was a lot closer. I would love to be there. That'd be awesome.
It won't take you long. Just hop in that car.
What, like 12 hours?
Yeah.
That's about what it is.
And a day off of work.
Yeah, Robbie's driving in. You're what, about 10 hours, Robbie?
8.5.
8.5. Robbie's in South Carolina and I'm in Missouri. So it's considering I'm crossing a time zone too. It's about 11 hours for me all told.
Sounds about right.
All right, y'all. Who we got next week? Y'all know?
No.
Cheat.
I'm cheating. I'm sorry.
I tell you somebody we are going to have on is Maggie Johnson, and she's going to talk about what happened to her and her daughter. I think y'all have already y'all have already went over that, and it
Yep.
kind of reminded me of what you were talking about, Robbie, earlier about being off in a ditch and being
Not a
taller.
good place to be.
No, it
Oh,
was
next week is Miss Andrea Billups. She's
Oh,
going
that's
to be
right.
our
I
interview
knew
next
that.
week. So
I was testing you. You passed. Good job.
I'm the cheater. I pulled up my calendar because I'm a terrible person and I have crap memory.
y'all. Thank y'all. I appreciate it.
Thank
Southern
you,
guys.
Spies,
too.
y'all.
And y'all check out DA and Robbie. If you he didn't go into a lot of detail tonight, but he always has a lot of detail with his stories, research that he does. He said some things tonight that were pretty cool, as far as like facts and everything. They do that a lot, so it makes it fun to watch. Everybody in chat, thank y'all. Everybody
Yes,
that'll be
thank you,
listening to this.
chat.
Yeah. We're fixing to head on out. I used to could talk for 4 or 5 hours, but I'm kind of
Southern goodbyes. We're
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep, we don't have
here
an
in the
outro.
Ozarks too.
Thank you,
All right.
gentlemen, so much.
Yep.
All right.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
y'all.
Thanks
y'all.
for having us.
All right.
Right.
Bye-bye.